Well, good morning, everyone. I hope you are well, and greetings to everyone, considering that we span across different time zones. This day, we just want to firstly apologize for the glitch that we had with the link. We should have started at 9:45, but unfortunately, due to the technical glitch, we were not able to start on time. However, the program is still set, and we are excited about hosting this event. And my name is Mwedha Ramanswana, and I'm a lecturer here at the Nelson Mandela University, specializing in forest engineering here at the George campus in South Africa. This is the 6th consecutive year that we are running the webinar, and we have seen a noticeable increase in the field and interest of modern silviculture. As opposed to perhaps a decade or so ago, wherein there was very little technological options available, we are now seeing a growing trend in diversity, development, and adaptation of various silviculture technologies accompanied by data systems. Today's webinar is focused on the theme of digitization in modern silviculture. And we are quite pleased to have received an overwhelming response with over 470 people that registered to be part of today's event. This is our highest number of participants to date, and it shows the growing interest in this field. Our audience is diverse, and they come from various fields across the globe. And despite the differences that we perhaps may have in silviculture and the way in which we practice it, the webinar hopes to attract and to create a platform where both local and international people can be able to engage and to be able to learn from each other. This webinar consists of representation from over 32 countries globally, and some African countries such as Eswatini, Zimbabwe, Cameroon, Ghana, Kenya, Malawi, as well as South America, where we have representation from Brazil, Uruguay, as well as Chile, North and Central America, USA, Belize, and Canada. In Europe, we have representation from Denmark, Germany, Sweden, Latvia, just to mention a few. So the participants that have registered have different occupations, and we have realized that most of them are foresters and managers, which is 44%, and then academics and researchers, as well as students, 46%, and then we also have contractors, consultants, as well as machine manufacturers, 10%. We trust that this webinar will be able to enhance your understanding of silviculture and data, as well as how digitization is improving our forest operations, as well as sustainability. Stimulate ideas for innovative thinking within your area of specialization, as well as expand your network and connections in this field. Thank you to all the participants for attending this event. And we would like to acknowledge our two sponsors, that is IUFRO, as well as Novel Quip Forestry, for their support in enabling us to have this event. To officially commence with our webinar, I would like to call upon Prof. Low. He is the Director of the Natural Resource Science and Management Cluster at the Nelson Mandela University here at the George campus. And he will offer the welcome. Prof. Low, welcome and over to you.
Yes, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm greeting you here from the George campus of the Nelson Mandela University. I'm Josh Lowe. I'm the head of the School of Natural Resource Science and Management. Now, as Mudanya has mentioned, we have quite a cosmopolitan audience. So maybe some orientation is required. On your screen, you will see a map of the southern tip of Africa. Our main campus of the Nelson Mandela University, of course, is located in the city of Gqeberha, formerly known as Port Elizabeth. But we are quite fortunate to be about 300 kilometers west of Gqeberha towards Cape Town, very close to the southern tip of Africa. And this is a region of exceptional beauty. You can see from the topography, it's quite a unique setup with mountains very close to the coastline, with a very unique scenic sense of place and very unique biodiversity. But I mean, you saw the visuals of the video earlier. I can't help myself, to share another view of our beautiful campus surrounded by forests and mountains. It is specifically valued for the very rich natural and cultural heritage and scenic beauty. Today, it is indeed a very beautiful day on the southern tip of Africa. I hope the day will bring great happiness and fulfillment. I would specifically like to welcome the speakers and delegates. Mudanyi mentioned we've got over 400 delegates from 32 different countries. It's really a privilege to meet you online, and I really hope that you will find your way to visit South Africa and specifically our very interesting region in the nearest future. Now, just something about our academic school, School of Natural Resource Science and Management. We offer 4 qualification streams: forestry, wood technology, nature conservation, and agricultural management. Now, each one of these programs are quite unique and authoritative in their own right, but our real strength lies in the fact that we are well integrated and we have developed into a true center of excellence in the broad discipline of natural resource management. About our Faculty of Science, our vision to be a world-class, engaged and transdisciplinary African Faculty of Science that responds to socio-economic and environmental challenges in society. That is very much the purpose of today's symposium as well, to be responsive and to connect with our community out there. And just for the sake of interest, the theme of sustainable futures features very prominently within our faculty as well as on the George campus. It forms the central framework of our strategic plan, and environmental stewardship is one of our very prominent values. So the whole discipline of forestry resonates very well with our faculty and with the Nelson Mandela University as a whole. So today's meeting is about the 6th Symposium on Digitalisation in Modern Silviculture. I would like to acknowledge the support from IUFRO as well as sponsorship from Novelcorp. There's been lots of excitement leading up to this symposium. It is certainly one of the hottest topics in the very vibrant forestry community that we form part of. The level of participation has always been great. Today we have 7 speakers from 4 different countries: South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, and Brazil. It almost sounds like the Southern Hemisphere rugby championships, but we're not going to talk too much about sport today. This is indeed an excellent opportunity to showcase the latest findings and developments. I hope it will foster a spirit of unity and excellence, and it will also result in lasting friendships and partnerships. So, in closing, to me, it is an absolute honor to be part of this very dynamic industry. We would like to congratulate Mudanyi and his team for this amazing initiative and the successes of the past, as well as the profile of today's event. The symposium is very fast becoming a priority event on our academic calendars. We are certainly very proud to be associated with this. So I hope you will find the symposium stimulating, and it will serve as a catalyst for higher levels of innovation and creativity. So on that note, over to Mudanyi, and I wish you a pleasant symposium and a marvelous creative day. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, thank you, Prof. Low, for those words and for the welcoming of everyone. And I'm hoping that starting with that note, we are going to proceed at quite a high level where we will be able to learn lots and engage. So as indicated, the event is sponsored by IUFRO Division 3, which is Forest Operations Engineering and Management, of which I also serve as the Deputy Coordinator. Within this division, we have several units that focus on specific themes. So this event falls under Unit 3.02.00, which is stand establishment and treatment. With this in mind, I would like to just share a short video from Prof. Vladan Ivetic, who is the coordinator of this unit. And he is going to say a few words on behalf of IUFRO and this event. So if we can please share the video.
Morning, everyone. My name is Vladan Ivetic. I'm full professor at University of Belgrade, but today I'm addressing you as a coordinator of UFRO research group on stand establishment and treatment. This is a small but dedicated research group, and we are welcoming anyone interested in this topic to join us and to work with us. Up to date, we organize several events, mainly scientific conferences on reforestation challenges, but in the next years, we will focus more on linking of science and practice. I'm honored and very thankful to the organizers for giving me this opportunity to address you. At the same time, I'm very sorry for addressing you this way due to technical reasons. It would be much better to attend the webinar and address to you live, as the two-way communication is best way to learn something new. I'm additionally sorry because I will not be able to follow the presentation on application of drones for stand monitoring and survival assessment after regeneration. This topic is something that me and the UFRO research group that I'm coordinating are very interested in. Once again, I want to thank the organizers for organizing such important event and to wish you all a successful webinar. I hope to meet you live in the next occasion. Best regards. Bye.
Thanks for that word from UFRO. Now we are going to proceed, and I'll just share a brief contextualization of the theme, and we will proceed to our first presentation. So just for context, we are living in a rapidly evolving world, and the forestry industry is no exception. There's no doubt that the landscape is quickly changing, and we are to continuously have to adapt and respond to the growing needs of our industry. Even though the core principles of silviculture are the foundations of good silviculture, we need to gain a deeper understanding of how technology can be integrated to achieve the objectives. Our theme this year is digitalization in modern silviculture. And digitalization in forestry involves the integration of various digital tools to enhance processes like establishment, tending, monitoring, which therefore leads to better resource utilization, improved forest health, and more resilient forest ecosystems. In this context, data is the foundation of technologies like artificial intelligence, robotics, the Internet of Things that are fast becoming part of our lives. And today we will listen to 7 engaging presentations. The presentations will cover high-level exploratory technologies, but also delve into the details of more technical operational activities. As indicated, our presenters are from Australia, Brazil, New Zealand, as well as South Africa, and they will touch on areas of nurseries, re-establishment tending, and how digital technologies are being integrated to improve the way we do things. The information generated during this webinar will hopefully be a catalyst for new thinking, knowledge, and be able to guide the future way forward. If you are a student, I hope it will inform you of your future dynamic and exciting work environment. If you are a researcher, this webinar will provide opportunities where you can see where knowledge gaps exist. If you are a forester, it presents you with ideas, solutions to solve some of the challenging aspects you may be experiencing. If you are in management, it gives you a perspective of trends, what strategies need to be put in place to adapt to the changing landscape. We have broken down this webinar into 2 sections. The first part, which is going to then be followed by a Q&A session. If you do look at your setup on Teams, there is a place where you can put your questions. So please put any questions that you have for the presenters as we carry on. And then when we get to the Q&A questions, I will then be able to pose the questions to the presenters to respond. Then after the break, we will have the last 3 presentations, and then we will have another Q&A session that will then conclude. Before each presentation, what I will do is that I will introduce the presenter, and then the presenter will then proceed to present for about 15 minutes. As we got or experienced this morning, we are at the mercy of technology, and technical glitches may occur as we are in different locations across the world. And please bear with us and be patient, and we will attempt to try and resolve any unforeseen challenges as quickly as possible. The webinar will be recorded, and we will be able to share the link at the end of the webinar. We normally upload it on the website, and then for presentations, based on the presenter's specification, whether the presentation can be shared or not, we will be able to share it with you. So without saying anything else, let's get to the business of the day. And this morning, I'm going to introduce Ms. Claire Stewart, and she is from the Forest Growers Research in New Zealand. And she has spent 16 years working in the private sector for innovation technology companies across Australasia and the UK, after which she led a portfolio of research at the Bioeconomy Science Institute, SCION. Currently, she leads a 7-year project of precision silviculture at the Forest Growers Research in New Zealand. And this association aims to transform forestry with mechanization, automation, and digitization from nursery to final thinning. The program also delivers foundational research in precision forestry, trials and adapts global technologies for local use, and develops custom solutions when needed. The program involves diverse people, researchers, engineers, technology providers, innovators, with the goal of creating mainly safer and more efficient forestry sector. She enjoys going sailing, fishing, forest bathing, and hanging out with her family. Today she's going to present on precision silviculture initiatives and progress in New Zealand. Claire, thank you so much for availing yourself, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much for that fantastic introduction. I'll just share my screen. I'll just check everyone can see that.
Yes, it's visible. You can go ahead.
Fantastic. Yes, so yeah, as Mudanya mentioned, my name is Claire Stewart and I'm based in New Zealand, and I'll actually give you a little bit more information about exactly where I am based. So you can see this is our beautiful country, New Zealand, or Aotearoa, the land of the long white cloud. We have over 10.1 million hectares of forest, and 38% of our land is covered in forest. So 8.1 million of those is native, and the remaining is plantation forest, and 1.7 hectares of that is for productive value. And so the remainder is used in reserves and around waterways and for infrastructure. And so our country is largely planted with Pinus radiata for a productive species. We are largely a monoculture with 85% of our plantation forest in Pinus radiata. It's an amazing species in New Zealand that just grows very well and has served us well as a country. Although it's becoming increasingly important for us to consider other species, and we are starting to direct our attention towards that. But for now, I am talking to you about the program that I lead, which is the Precision Silviculture program. And really how this came about was acknowledgement from the industry and from our government here in New Zealand that there had been a lack of investment over the years in silviculture specifically. So we capture that as being from the nursery through to final thinning of the forest. And the program itself, which runs for 7 years, captures all of these elements from nursery, planting and establishment, pruning, thinning. And then we also have a special data and engagement work stream. And that's really about connecting the integrated value that exists across each of those work streams as we start to deploy some of these new and smart technologies. So what I'm going to attempt to do today is give you a bit of a whirlwind tour on some of the projects I thought you might find interesting. But within 15 minutes, it's not possible to go through everything, unfortunately. So if something strikes you that you see and you'd love to know more about, I'd be happy to talk about that. The program itself is funded by our industry 60% and matched by our government here in New Zealand 40%. So Forest Growers Research, who I work for, is an industry-led research organisation. I'm going to start at the nursery, and what you can see on screen here is a range of different projects that we have underway. I'm just going to tap into a couple of those. It's worth noting in New Zealand, we still have a large number of bare root nurseries, and whilst there is growing interest in containerised nurseries, we do still have a big focus in growing in bare root. And so when we look at our portfolio of digital transformation projects within the nursery, we are looking at technologies that support both of those initiatives. As Mudanya mentioned in the introduction, we as a program often firstly like to look out to what exists in the world and what could we adopt here in New Zealand. We trial and evaluate that technology. We adapt it if it needs to do so. And if we can't find something that suits, we make it in terms of a custom technology project. But this project that you see in front of you is a piece of technology that we've actually found in Australia and we are currently trialing in our nurseries. It's called BioScout and it's a pathogen detection technology tool. So what it does is it detects and measures the fungal airborne pathogens 24/7 and has a read on that, uses machine learning and AI to start to learn what it's looking at, and it combines that with weather data, with its onboard weather station, to start to help us understand patterns in what's happening across our nurseries. One of the key reasons we've used this in New Zealand, we have a particular pathogen called terminal crook, which has been something that's been impacting on our nurseries significantly in the last few years, and it significantly affects the growth and potentially mortality of the crop. So these types of technologies are now at our fingertips, and it is looking positive in terms of being able to get early reads on this data before you would get pre-visual assessment. Another project I briefly wanted to share with you is about understanding the microclimates that exist within our greenhouses. So this is a mobile sensor platform concept, and I'll show you a photo soon of it coming to life. But the idea is that we can analyze and optimize the conditions within our nursery. And we've got multiple different sensors running on here, humidity, solar radiation, to name a few. Then we can create a 4D map of that environment and understand how we can change that depending on the weather conditions, the time of the year, and also start to understand how we might use different layouts within our nursery design to get a better outcome. This is another piece of technology that we are working with. It's the Corvus mini drone. This is a drone and a service technology. And what we are trying to do by linking up the technology that you saw before with the micro conditions and the mini drone is be able to map and monitor our seedlings in real time, applying AI approaches to be able to link the plant performance to the environment and the growth response that we're seeing. So we've been using this technology to platform to build out germination models to better understand how our seedlings germinate. And we're now starting to follow them as they grow and develop. And the benefit of technology like this with drone as a service means that you can plan the missions and you don't have to physically be there when it undertakes those, as long as it's got a clear protocol to follow. This is me with the drone, and you can see on the right, hopefully there is some codes along the back walls of our nursery, and so you can see that's giving it the guidance it needs to be able to fly. And on the left, you can see the sensor platform network that's in development, and this is a mobile unit and it can be moved around the nursery environment. This is a prototype, and the idea is to have multiples of these produced so that we can get a much better understanding of the environment that we're operating in. And this is part of a multi-year program, which is all about precision vegetative propagation. So this is really just the first steps to setting the foundations so that we can better understand the conditions within our nurseries. I'm going to move along now and talk to you about what's happening in planting and establishment within New Zealand. We have some very tricky terrain across our country with a lot of our lands that we're planting on would be between 15 and 25 degrees. So it is quite steep. We have a range of soil conditions, and within that steep terrain, we also have quite a lot of ruggedness and differentiation. So what that means for us is that we won't be able to be fully mechanized when it comes to planting. We will have to use our spades for a lot longer into the foreseeable future. So we're thinking about technologies that not only support our manual planting, but that also go through that chain all the way to mechanized planting. I'm not going to touch on our efforts in the GPS planting because we have Harley, who is also presenting today and is one of our collaborators, going to talk about this. But I am going to touch on two other projects in automated precision spraying and mechanized planting. So firstly, I'd like to introduce to you the BFD70, Big Forestry Drone. This is a project that we have backed under the program that I lead, and it's by a New Zealand company called SBS Automation. They came to us with a vision to produce a heavy lift drone that they wanted to be able to fly for much longer than the crafts that could fly out there, and carry a large amount of herbicide to actually be able to conduct an efficient and productive herbicide release spraying operation. And this craft certainly does that. So it's 4.5 meters tip to tip. It has a flight time of 120 minutes. It can carry 50 kgs of payload, and it flies in continuous flight while looking for a targeted tree location to deliver a precise amount of spray. After many challenges, as I'm sure those who have innovated will understand, we are now at a stage where we are just undertaking our first trial flights of this craft. It's very exciting. This is a technology that will be available globally, and we think it's a game changer from previous crafts where you might get 15 minutes worth of flight time and be able to carry half the payload. So really exciting project coming out of our program. Now I'll talk a little bit about mechanized planting. And as you can understand, with the diverse terrain that we have in New Zealand, it is not a one-size-fits-all solution. So these are the key platforms that we've trialed, and they're not dissimilar to platforms that have been trialed in many other countries. So on the left-hand side, we have our excavator-based platforms, and those are more suited to our steep terrain. We started testing with the implanter, and more recently, we've tested with the ResiTech. And then we have our forder-based agricultural style planters that, like PlantMax, that are really all about productivity. They're working very, very quickly and have a planting rate that is quite phenomenal. So in terms of these two different technology sets, we've got the excavator base. From a manual planting perspective, it might be close to or on par with what you would expect from a manual crew. But really where we're seeing the benefit stack up of this technology is our ability to do the land prep, to be able to plant, to be able to apply fertilizers and hydrogels all together in one step. And for us in New Zealand, because our planting window is quite small, 3 months, we want to be able to extend this across at least a 5-month period across the shoulder seasons through use of hydrogels. And one of the key drivers for this is around our ownership of machinery. So our contractors in New Zealand often pick up that ownership of the machinery, and they need to have their machines as utilized as possible. So we need to do our work in the research to prove that the hydrogels will have a fundamental benefit there. But the project I'm going to talk to you a little bit more on is our work with the PlantMax. So this was brought out to New Zealand by PAMPAC and supported by our program. And it was brought out in its configuration with the forder base, which is what is also used across the world in many places. The challenge with this forder base for us in New Zealand is that we had a loss of efficiency, and this was largely due to the fact that it had to do large turning circles to move around the estate. So there was lost time there, and there was lost time due to repositioning of the vehicle as well. So we looked at all of this, and we still felt that there was big potential with this platform. Even with these considerations, we were achieving 950 trees per hour, which is more than probably what a person would achieve in a day. So we thought it was worth to undertake a project to adapt it to a new base machine. So essentially what we're talking about here is picking up what you see in the yellow. So it's the PlantMar planting kit, which is the planting arms, the cab where it's a manual operation to load the trees, the storage unit, and the scarifiers. And we wanted to put it onto a more appropriate base machine. And we wanted to take an approach where it could be more of a clip-on attachment. Sounds easier than probably the reality. But really, this was also about supporting our contractors, because we want to come up with something that outside of those planting windows, they could use for other things like earthworks. And we did it. This is our adapted machine. This is just a few weeks ago in one of our sites in New Zealand. And it has been a big journey. We had to lease a base machine in the end to trial the concept. And really, this was just about seeing if our hypothesis was correct, that this could reduce the turning circle, reduce the repositioning time, and it absolutely did that. So we've achieved an increase in 40% of trees planted per hour, now planting approximately 1,440 trees per hour. But we have shifted some problems for new ones. This machine has rubber tracks, and we have big stumps in New Zealand, and it doesn't like those stumps, and so we've had some challenges there with wear and tear. So that's a new problem for us to solve, but we are starting to get closer to a machine that is more suitable for our conditions in New Zealand. Briefly wanted to touch on pruning as well. So pruning in New Zealand and around the world, it's a particularly hard job to mechanize. I think it's one of the ones where it's very difficult to beat the human in terms of how dynamic and the decision making that we undertake as a person doing this job. So we've got two areas of work here, one which is about improving hand tools to support our manual workers, and the other which is around mechanized pruning. And we have multiple different projects on the go where we have found technology in the world, such as the Abiligno, which is the tree climbing pruner, and brought it to New Zealand and tested it. Unfortunately, it did damage on our Pinus radiata because of the big whorls and nodal swelling that we have. We are now looking to test it in our redwood plantations. And we have two other custom development projects, one which I'll share with you in a moment, the other with the University of Canterbury, which is the development of a robotic pruning arm that has vision with it. But this one, which is possibly a bit more of a basic approach, is on an excavator-based machine with a boom arm. Here was it in one of its first trials. It achieves the result in terms of speed and its ability to get through the branches, but the eagle eyes amongst us will see that it did cause some damage. So it is going through some amendments to the design at the moment to be retested at the end of the year. But we are still trying to crack this nut, I will say. So if anyone in the world has a better solution for pruning in the mechanical space, we'd love to hear about it. And finally, I will just touch on some innovations within the thinning space. Here we break this up into two areas as well. So one is about how do we support the stem selection decision, and we've done some great work. There's a tool that's been developed called Tree Tools. You can look it up online. It's actually currently freely available as a beta release tool, and this does a pre and post thinning assessment. So you can either get a virtual plot of your estate using your UAV RGB data, or you can upload your LiDAR data to get a stocking assessment and other associated metrics that go with that. We've also been using virtual reality to help train our workers to better be able to make the thinning decisions in the forest, and we've got a custom development project to develop a new lightweight thinning machine. And I just wanted to end by showing you some of these images, which is work that we're doing with the Bioeconomy Science Institute Scion group. And it's just to show that sometimes with our work in silviculture, we don't always end up where we think we're going to. And this is work being able to use simulation tools, being able to pull in our real GPS locations of our forests, create 3D walkable environments, and then start to grow out what a synthetic forest might look like using synthetically generated tree assets that we've created in the Unreal Engine. And what this is helping us to start to do is really depict what we want our future forest to look like, and then be able to model that under different conditions. It's also a discussion tool when we're thinking about mechanization. How do we want to tackle the spacing of our forest? How do we want to tackle the harvesting? Where do the skid sites need to be? And what this work has been really exciting personally for me in leading to is our ability to understand how to use simulation tools. And ultimately, we see that we're going to be doing a lot more of this to be able to look at our machines on these landscapes as well. Imagine if we had have been able to showcase that PlantMax machine I showed you earlier on the site before we did the adaptation. And we can play within this tool around the defects commonly seen on the site, the undergrowth, and so on. So for me, I'm really excited about how we can combine these simulation tools with these smart technologies of the future so that we can really help ourselves to see where we're going when we're working with an asset that goes over such a long period of time. It was my pleasure to share really just a very quick fly through of some of our technologies. I thank you very much for listening. We have a Precision Silviculture New Zealand LinkedIn group where we share a lot of our work. So please join us there if you found that interesting. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Claire. Very, very interesting work that you are busy with there. And just an encouragement to the attendees that if you have any questions, please put them on the chat, and Claire will be able to respond to them during the Q&A session. But a lot of mind-stimulating ideas and things and testing that is happening in New Zealand, and we're looking forward to the results and feedback in terms of the testing. Moving along, we are now going to move to the next presentation. And this presentation is going to be offered by Thembinkosi Zulu. And Thembinkosi Zulu is going to be talking about perspectives on silviculture digitalization in South Africa. And he has an advanced diploma and honors from the Nelson Mandela University. He's currently doing his master's in forestry. And he has worked for a contractor, and he has also served in different roles within the university, tutors, and student leadership roles. His personal interests are research and as well as gym and exercising. So Thembinkosi, thank you for being able to present about your work, and we're looking forward to your feedback. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Onatsana, for the introduction. Let me try to share my presentation now. Can you please confirm if you can see the presentation?
Yes, it's visible. You can go ahead.
No, okay. Thank you once again. And good morning to everyone. As introduced, my name is Thembinkosi Zulu, and today I'll be sharing perspectives on silviculture digitalization in South Africa based on insights gathered from industry stakeholders. So this presentation draws from my MSc research supervised by Dr. Ramatswana, Prof. Gwera, and Prof. Bolding. So in the next 15 minutes, I will start off by introducing the context of digitalization in silviculture, describe the methods used to collect and analyze the data. I will also share the main findings on digital maturity levels, to-use patterns, followed by the key drivers and barriers to digitalization adoption. We'll also look at insights from stakeholders' experiences and finish off with some global comparisons and practical recommendations. So globally, there's been a rapid growth in digital tools across forestry and agriculture, with mobile apps, sensors, and cloud platforms becoming part of everyday operations. Smart device ownership has surged worldwide, meaning real-time data can now be collected and shared in remote areas. Forestry is currently entering Industry 4.0 and moving towards Forestry 5.0, where technology supports people, helping them work more efficiently, and safely rather than replacing them. So digitalization in this context means integrating digital tools into silviculture so that monitoring, decision making, and overall efficiency happens in real time. Silviculture in this study focused on operational day-to-day activities involved in stand establishment and tending, and our main focus here was on how these activities are performed and managed, and particularly how digital tools are being applied within them by growers and contractors. Within South Africa, digitalization has progressed much faster in harvesting than in silviculture, largely because harvesting has advanced rapidly in mechanization adoption using machine telematics, onboard computers, and integrated planning systems. However, silviculture operations remain more labor intensive with limited mechanization and slower uptake of digital tools, which has then now created a clear gap in adoption between the two. So the goal of this study was then now to understand how South African silviculture stakeholders perceive and adopt digital tools, and to identify the main drivers, barriers, and the opportunities for inclusive digitalization. To achieve that, the study had four objectives, of which the first was to assess how digitalization is currently being applied in silviculture operation. Secondly, to compare the level of digital maturity across growers and contractors. Thirdly, was to look at the key drivers and barriers influencing the adoption. And finally, to explore opportunities for a more inclusive and integrated approach to digital transformation within the sector. For this study, we collected the data through semi-structured interviews conducted both in person and via Microsoft Teams, depending on participants' location and availability. Each interview lasted an average of about 45 minutes, which allowed participants to share their experiences in depth while keeping a set of consistent questions. In total, we interviewed 23 professionals from 4 provinces, and majority came from Mpumalanga and KwaZulu-Natal, which dominates South Africa's commercial forestry landscape, followed by smaller shares from Eastern Cape and Western Cape. And we unfortunately couldn't secure participants from the Limpopo province. So participants represented various organizations within the sector. Growers made up 57%, contractors 17%, software developers 9%, and the remaining 16% were consultants, manufacturers, NPO representatives, and researchers. So in terms of positions, the majority, 57%, held middle management roles such as plantation and area managers, executive and senior management, including directors and CEOs, made up 22%, while technical specialists accounted for 13%, and the remaining 8% were consultants or hybrid roles. Most of participants were highly experienced. 65% had over 10 years in the industry. After the data was collected, all interviews were transcribed and analyzed thematically, grouping responses into recurring themes and patterns, supported by descriptive statistics to highlight adoption trends. So now that I've covered the background and methods, let's move into the results and discussions. So digital maturity reflects how well digital tools are integrated into silviculture operations, going beyond simply owning equipment to focus on consistent and effective use. So the table here defines each digital maturity level. On the low level, it's mostly manual or semi-digital processes with tools used ad hoc and little integration, such as the use of WhatsApp, Excel, and paper records. On the medium level, it's several digital tools used regularly with partial integration, for example, the use of GIS mapping, in-house databases, or basic mobile apps. On the high level, integrated platforms with real-time data and advanced telematics like microforest, forest taps, and telematics or machine data. So overall, about 48% of the organizations rated themselves low, 35% medium, and 17% high. Corporate growers clustered themselves in the medium to high range, describing integrated platforms and real-time data use, whereas contractors and growers and small growers reported low digital maturity practices. So from the stakeholders' responses, we identified 4 clusters of digital tools adoption. And looking at this picture here, we can see that majority of about 70%, they still rely on manual or semi-digital methods, followed by integrated platforms at 57%, which allow managers to monitor safety, productivity, and quality in one place. Some companies have developed in-house systems to track their own operations. And finally, what we see is emerging technologies such as drones for aerial surveys, GPS-based monitoring. However, the adoption here is still very much limited. So while there is a clear movement towards more advanced digital tools, the adoption is still uneven, as you can see even in the figure here, is still uneven within the sector, as most of the organizations still rely more on basic or semi-digital methods. So here we are looking at how often different digital tools in silviculture are being used across the industry. And the most frequently used digital application or tools were WhatsApp and other messaging apps, which dominate day-to-day communication. Next was Excel and other administrative software used for payroll, reporting, and HR management. And GIS and mapping tools they follow, which supports spatial monitoring and planning of compartments and operations. Further along, we see the use of company websites and social media for marketing, reported by a smaller but a growing number of organizations. Finally, telematics and machine data systems have the slowest uptake, highlighting how rare high-tech real-time equipment monitoring still is. So even with the variety of options available, basic tools like WhatsApp and Excel clearly dominate, while advanced systems remain uncommon within South African silviculture. So based on the participants' responses, 5 key drivers for adopting digital tools in silviculture were identified. Operational efficiency was the most common. About 83% of participants mentioned it, citing cost reduction, time savings, labor optimization, and real-time monitoring. Strategic advantage followed at 61%, with many highlighting competitive edge digitalization can provide. Sustainability and compliance were mentioned by 35%, reflecting on environmental regulations and long-term viability. Safety and risk management came from 26%, focused on improving field safety and accountability. Finally, implementation enablers such as infrastructure, financial backing, and managerial support were noted by 9%. So these results show that efficiency and competitiveness are the main motivators, while environmental safety and enabling factors, they play a supporting role. Participants also highlighted several barriers to digitalization in silviculture. Technical constraints were the most frequently reported, where participants mentioned that plantations are in remote areas with poor network coverage, and this makes mobile apps and real-time data collection very difficult. Financial limitations were noted by 74%, limited digital skills by 70%, forming the most prevalent group of internal operational barriers. Participants mentioned that beyond software licenses, costs include smartphones, tablets, and ongoing data charges. Fewer participants identified resistance to change, lack of management support, and policy and regulatory issues as significant constraint. So this pattern suggests that internal capacity limitations such as technical, financial, and human resources, they pose greater challenge to digitalization than strategic level barriers. So in this slide, we are looking at how different stakeholders experience the benefit of digitalization within the value chain. So at the top, we have managers and company owners who benefit the most as digital tools give them the real-time insights, better oversight, and improved decision-making. Grower companies also benefit through efficiency gains, profitability, and stronger strategic planning. Contractors do experience some benefits mainly around tracking productivity and monitoring performance. Looking at field and employees, they also reported some positive effect too, such as safer workplaces, upskilling, structured workflows, and even improved job satisfaction. Communities and the wider industry, they benefit the least directly, with 39% citing advantages such as employment stability, standardization, and regulatory transparency. So while digitalization does create benefit across the value chain, those benefits are still unevenly distributed among the stakeholders involved within the value chain. So now, looking at the main risk and global perspectives on digitalization, stakeholders were worried about the vulnerability of data systems from hacking to privacy breaches. Almost half of the participants raised concerns that digital tools could reduce employment opportunity, especially for contractors and field workers. About 44% of the participants mentioned that the available apps and platforms, they simply don't work in real time, in real conditions of plantations. So if we step back to the global picture, we see South Africa lagging. In Brazil, companies are experimenting with mechanization, drones, and even semi-autonomous planters. In the Nordics, there is a strong government support, excellent network coverage in rural areas, and major investment in precision forestry research and development. So by comparison, South Africa struggles with basic connectivity, limited training opportunities, and fragmented systems. So the gap isn't just about technology, it's also about the enabling environment and policy support. And that brings us to the recommendations that came out strongly from stakeholders' insights, that there is a clear call for a national digitalization strategy, which can be led jointly by Forestry South Africa, government, and technology experts. There's also an urgent need to invest in rural connectivity and affordable devices. Inclusive training and programs are essential because currently most training is directed at managers. Support for small growers and contractors is critical as large corporates already have the resources to adopt new systems, but small growers and contractors, they risk being left further behind. So in short, the message from stakeholders was clear that digitalization must be inclusive, practical, and supported by strong enabling systems. So to conclude, the study aimed to understand how silviculture stakeholders perceive and adopt digital tools and to identify the main drivers, barriers, and opportunities for inclusive digitalization. We achieved those objectives by assessing digital maturity, which showed that most organizations still rely on manual or semi-digital systems. Only a few corporate growers have reached high levels of integrations. We also identified the most commonly used tools, and it was mainly instant messaging, administrative softwares, and applications using spatial data, while advanced systems like telematics and machine data remain limited. In exploring the drivers and barriers, we found that efficiency, cost reduction, and competitiveness drives the adoption, but limited infrastructure, affordability, and digital skills continue to constrain the progress. Finally, looking at the opportunities, participants emphasized the need for inclusive training, user-friendly systems, and human-centered approaches that make technology work for people, not to replace them. So overall, digitalization in South Africa is emerging, but still uneven, with a real potential to grow if we focus on inclusion, integration, and practicality. I would like to thank Nelson Mandela University for this opportunity, FPM CITA, PGRS, and NRF for funding. I would also like to thank my supervisors for guidance and support, industry stakeholders who participated in this study, family and friends for their moral support. And that brings us to the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Temigosi, for that presentation. And part of trying to improve is understanding where you are. And I think your presentation gives us an idea in terms of where we stand as South Africa, and also shows us where the opportunities are for improvement. So we're moving along. We are now going to move to the next presentation. The next presentation is going to be by Mr. Dion Redinger from Saviti, and he's going to be presenting on mulchers as an effective tool for residue and fuel management. Just a bit about Dion is that Dion is an experienced professional in agriculture and forestry sectors with a career spanning over 3 decades. He served as a sugarcane and forestry director at Crystal Holdings up to from 1990 to 2010, before transitioning to private farming, wherein he also founded Saviti Trading. His current work focuses on land conversion and mulching services for major clients like SEPI under long-term forestry contracts. He is involved in biomass production and supply, as well as research and implementation of biofuel solutions, including biomass to diesel conversion. He is also leading innovation in energy crops, such as paulownia trees, through importing tissue culture and trialing sorghum in KZN. So he supports silviculture planting operations through Saviti Silvex. Dion conducts research on vertical farming systems and is prototyping gravity-fed irrigation pumps, contributing to sustainable and forward thinking in agriculture practices. So lots that Dion is busy with. So Dion, welcome, and we're looking forward to your presentation. Over to you.
Good day. Thank you, and thank you for the kind words. Can you guys see my screen? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. We can't see your screen yet. Yes, now we can see it. You can go ahead.
Okay. Right. So, as we know, there's a lot of talk about mulching and why we do what we do. There's a lot of topics, a lot of research has happened as well. There's a couple of basics, and I'm not going to go through all of them because of the time restraints we have. But at the end of the day, when we got out of private farming and looking at the problems out there, how do you mitigate some of these challenges that are facing us? And it's not just cost of equipment and the game that takes so long to grow crops. And but also, can we innovate in this space to try and make very expensive equipment actually be able to become practical on the ground. Some of the topics, as you can see on the screen, I am generalizing on some of them because some people might want, there are pros and cons in some of these that we have operated in the space we're in, but each one has its benefit, and some areas also has the negativities in it. But at the end of the day, we operate such a vast area in just South Africa, and also the climates and the environment conditions that we're operating in. We basically brought the mulches in because of what they call the sins of our fathers, and that was just the large stumps and the number of stumps that we're dealing with. And with health and safety going where it is or where it should be, we can't keep on risking humans in this operation. And going forward, we felt that we need to try and find the most cost way of fixing the sins of our fathers and creating a clean slate. But that clean slate also means that, what do you leave behind? In the past, a lot of things were burnt, and not all the time when you use your fires, does it mean that the fires are going to now eradicate the problems going forward? So when we got into mulching, the whole plan was to break the back of the past and then utilize what we then can achieve to make it easier going forward. We set our sights on utilizing wheeled machines. Track machines have their place. Excavator mulchers have their place. Again, it's adaptability and the conditions that you have and where we operate. Now, some areas that will tell us that we're operating in flat areas. Trust me, there's not much flat out there wherever we are operating. So I always joke and I say we are flying helicopters in the bush without taking off. So the two critical elements in this space is equipment that is designed and purpose-built for what we do, and of course our operators, who are actually our pilots at the end of the day, because there are still humans in those machines using technology to achieve an end goal. Where do we operate? In some areas, as you can see in this picture, these are up in the mountains in the Drakensberg area. The plantation area actually had very few rocks in it. But you can see on the neighboring sections, just a massive amount of rocks. And some of those rocks you also find in the plantations. And of course, our biggest danger is also not just in the fuel load reduction, but also if you're hitting rocks. Now, rocks, of course, are going to damage your teeth. We're running at 5,500 PSI, spinning at 1,500 RPM. And when we hit something, something's going to spark and something's got to give. So one of the two main dangers we sit with is damaging of equipment and also starting our own fires in areas where we're trying to do fuel load reduction. So that is also critical where you're doing your pre-risk assessments and everything that goes with it, and highly trained guys that rather take the time and where you're going to be operating. And in this particular area also was where all your thunderstorms start as well. And in those thunderstorms, of course, it's not just the lightning as well. But if you do have lightning strikes and it's just as a dry thunderstorm, if those fires do start, where do you go? Where do you get away? How do you get out? All those tricks of the trade come in, and that's where the experience of the operators operating very expensive equipment comes into play. Moving into more general compartments, the picture you see on the left is what we used to be able to see, where a mechanical harvester or manual harvester comes in, and either timber is stacked mechanically or manually, but you've still got large copper stumps in place, and you've got a lot of old stumps as well with new stumps between the timber stacks. And looking at the picture on the left, you'll understand that. Can you imagine now having to be a chainsaw operator, having to get in there and actually physically cut a line out so that the forwarders or your extraction equipment can get through there to load up the timber and actually pick it up and move it out. The picture on the right now shows where we have mulched. In this particular compartment, we mulched everything between the timber stacks. This way also almost creates a highway for the forwarders. When we also mulch between the timber stacks, we also do the ends of the compartments where equipment actually leaves the fields as well, because the guys need to turn. So we're also trying to mitigate damage on forwarding equipment as well in this space. Of course, talking about old stumps, these are just some of the size of the old stumps, because some of the areas we operate in was not in the pulp sector, but was in the lumber for sawmilling sector. So we get everything thrown at us, from the good, the bad, and the ugly. In this particular compartment, we don't mulch all the lines between the timber that's been stacked. We might just do 1 or 2 passes, because the excavator or the loading equipment might not be able to follow where the timber is actually lying in, but next to it to then load the forwarder. This compartment also just shows once timber has been removed, we then do a full mulch in some areas. The full mulch is there to get rid of not just all the stumps that are currently there, but all the old material and the old stumps, because in the past, most compartments have been burnt. And once compartments are burnt, as you know, the stumps are carbonized and they will almost be there for forever. What we also found in this particular region of interest was also the same area where the thunderstorm started. When we have heavy downpours of rain happening here, and the areas were burnt, we could actually see the sheets of rain coming off the mountain slopes and off these compartments, and actually creating a lot of runoff, a lot of erosion, and losing moisture. Whereas when we mulched in these areas, we actually thought that the thunderstorms hadn't reached those areas, so we physically had to actually get onto the ground and realize that the mulch is actually creating a barrier between the surface of the soil and the actual rain drops, and also the moisture retention in these fields. So that was a very interesting exercise to be to see it live on that day. Okay, again, this is a manual operation of harvesting and stacking. Here we concentrated on actually the brush lines. The brush lines within, most of the time, the brush lines of this size, we only need to pass over them twice to get them onto ground level. This then allows the forwarders to get through as well. But you can also imagine, while you're doing this, and if you did have to have a fire, you could actually get your fire tenders coming in here. So it's not just extraction lines going in here and allowing equipment to get accessibility of equipment getting in and out, but also allows for fire tenders to be able to operate in this environment. Now, this is a manual operation, but as you've seen in the past, we've also done it on mechanized operations as well. The extraction lines are also, depending on the size that they are at, can also vary exactly where you need to cut that extraction line. If you see this one is in the center, but it might be that you have an area where there's some areas where you actually cannot cut the extraction line, mulch the extraction lines out on long areas like this. So there might be big dongas or rocks or something in the way, or areas where your forwarders cannot get out. We will then find a suitable way of mulching the extraction lines, even between the timber stacks, to allow the forwarders and extraction equipment to actually get the timber out. Often in these areas also, once we've done the extraction lines and the timber is out, we then still go ahead and do a full mulch if it's required. If not, it allows for other semi-mechanized equipment to come in. This was in a pine environment where brush lines were also very big brush lines of pine. We all know the amount of residue that's left behind pine. We concentrated specifically on the brush lines of pine here as well. This took up to 2 to 3 runs through those big brush lines. People will ask us, what's harder, eucalyptus, wattle, or pine? Surprisingly, pine is the most difficult to mulch because of the softer material that actually absorbs the horsepower more. So it takes a bit longer. In other words, you can imagine the cushion or the sponge of a pine in this space. So we suck up a lot more horsepower to break down the material in this space. Again, that's why we need to utilize a lot of horsepower in this space to break the material down. The more the material breaks down, of course, or dries out, the bigger the pieces are. It's more difficult to mulch. So even in coppice and eucalyptus, the more coppice there is, there's moisture in the stump that allows a better quality mulch than a dry stump that likes to shatter. So and here again, you can see in this pine plantation, they can basically follow up and plant by utilizing chemicals for spraying what's already there or waiting for the other to come through as well. This was in a wattle plantation. We all know wattle brush is a lot of brush afterwards, and of course very, very hot. Most brush, as we know, when it's stockpiled like this, creates intense heat, and we've also seen a lot of damage on soils, even after they've been planted, where the seedlings did not do well or even died. This particular farmer here decided that he was in an estate here, a high value land, and we needed to mulch instead of burning the material. Ideally, when it comes to wattle, we like to mulch it standing, but here they managed to get some payback where the bigger stuff was taken out, the bark was sent away to plants for what do you call it? I forget the word now, but yeah. So the next one you'll see now left is the wattle that hasn't been mulched, and on the right hand side where we have mulched the compartment. Moving on to where some of the pine plantations where they've done thinnings. These thinnings often have a lot of material lying in them. Depending on the age of the pine, often those thinnings that are lying there are also in line with the lumber that's been taken out, or the timber that's been taken out there. And these particular pictures show that the timber has been removed, and it was actually quite difficult for them to get this out. We then followed up by mulching these lines. These lines, of course, once they've been mulched, are there pretty much forever as an extraction line, but also as the trees grow and get older, and if you keep them clean and maintain them, the sustainability of these lines actually remain. As we know, often there's timber that falls over or breaks off in thunderstorms and high winds. But if you look after these plantations, these areas can be maintained quite easily, and you don't necessarily then you have to use large equipment to run through here. Looking at aerial plantations and compartments that we deal with, this particular compartment was actually mechanically harvested, and you'll see the stacks of timber in the top left and in the center, where you've got the biomass lying, or the organic residue lying between the timber stacks where the stockpiles are. And in the bottom compartment, you can see where the lumber has actually been removed and taken out, but you can see the brush lines that remain. Now, if you put a match into that, you can imagine how intense the heat is on those brush lines. And there's not much organic material in between them, but if you have high winds blowing, those brush lines will ignite each other, and it becomes very, very difficult to control this environment. This is a mechanically harvested compartment, and here you can see how the organic material, or the biomass and the lumber that's been harvested is a lot more even and a lot more distributed than the mechanically harvested compartment. There's another compartment that's manually harvested, and you can see the brush lines in this space as well. This particular compartment was then mulched, and this looks like the breakdown of that mulch 6 months after mulching. And in some areas, it actually breaks down very quickly, and some areas it almost breaks down too quickly. And in other areas, depending on where you are, takes a long time to break down. The main idea here is to get the mulch to that type of quality that you can put and plant and get in there, either manually or mechanically. This particular one was manually harvested and then fully mulched. That's why you can actually see the lines in it where the brush lines would have been. The lighter lines you see are actually the brush lines, and in between would have been stumps that were then mulched as well. But in this space you can see manually, and then this is a mechanically harvested compartment, And then here you can see, because of the more even distribution of the organic material, you have a far better mulch quality and even distribution of mulch across the whole compartment. Talking about slopes, and it is, of course, in forestry, it is a challenge. So what can your equipment do? Our equipment is very similar to skidders, but here again, the critical factor here is how good your operator is, how well he knows the machine and the capability of your equipment. In this particular area, because we could go up and we could turn around, we could come back down as well. You can see some of the rocky areas which we then left, and this is where we believe on tires we are a lot better than on tracks in this particular compartment. Also, of course, if you can't turn in a steep compartment, or there's a drop off onto the roads, it makes it very dangerous and very difficult for the guys to then turn on. So that's where your risk assessment comes in again, to make sure that that the equipment is capable of operating in that environment. We have operated up to 35% slopes. Sometimes our guys do push the limits, but at the end of the day, the guys have been in these machines for a long time. We've been in the game for over 10 years, so we got to look after what the guys' capabilities are, even from an outside perspective. In this particular compartment, also, you can imagine trying to burn some of these areas, the drafts of wind coming up here and trying to control the burn. Sometimes we can't mulch the whole compartment, but we mulch most of it. And here you can also see the breakdown we've had in these compartments with fuel load reduction. In the back corner there, you can see the before and then after. Of course, we don't always have wet weather and dry and subtropical rains that are normally prevalent in summer. Often clients will ask us to come and mulch when it's either very dry or drought conditions, or in the winter months, so the compartments can be readily available when the rains do come back. Sometimes the rains don't necessarily come back, so that's when the gels come into planting. But we play in very harsh conditions. I don't think there's harsher conditions to play in within what our technology or the equipment has to operate in. And so we play in a lot of dust. So also the direction of where we operate, also most of the time we'll try and run in the direction that we need to, but sometimes we have to change direction so that the operators can see because of the dust that's in the way. We'll see the machine at the bottom that's operational. This area was extremely dry. We've almost been into a 10-year drought cycle. A lot of dead timber, a lot of material that was when it was harvested had to be left behind. It was not suitable for milling, and we mulched everything. And again, these areas have dramatically changed since the mulching and leaving organic material on the ground. Of course, the type of soils, the type of conditions we operate in, you can see in this particular one that even changed the color of our equipment. And even if we have mulched areas that have burnt in the past, you can imagine the carbon in that burnt material getting into the equipment. So yeah, maintaining this equipment and getting the job done, not just necessarily fuel load reduction, but the future of trees to grow to that area's ability is critical and paramount. Sometimes how big is a problem? Yes, we could probably mulch around these areas and leave them alone, but well, I say you can't sometimes leave the pimple standing. In this particular compartment, there were some really large stumps. This particular stump intrigued me, and I thought, how hard is it? How long would it take to get rid of this problem? It is the old red gum trees that were in this particular area. Some people actually call them widow makers. But yeah, we got into this one, and with the capability of the equipment, you start higher up and actually work it down. And the further down we got, the harder it got. But eventually you get to a point where I asked my supervisor to lie on the base of the stump, and this particular stump took 33 minutes to get rid of. And at least now the slate is clean and we can start again. Other parts of the country, more in the Western Cape, a plant, organic material called fynbos. We come from KZN, and the greener it looks, we thought it can't burn. I think the greener it is, the more it burns. It's the oils that are in there. We had a particular call out here, knowing that the massive fires that happened in this region in 2017s, 18s. We were called in, and we were lucky enough to be close by, and the bombers were operating, and the spotter was operating as well. We got onto the ground and started a fire break, watching the wind, making sure that the wind was not blowing onto us but blowing away for us. So the operator would always move away if the wind changed. So again, experience on the ground and making sure that he does the right thing. This is actually all single pass, and only here and there we did a second pass to try and break the material down, or the fuel load, to make sure that when the wind did turn, we could hold the line. This is also now mopping up after the fire had reached the fire break. At this stage, also the bombers had stopped operating, and we were only utilizing the spotter in the air to guide us on where we need to place the fire break and get the fuel load down, depending on once we had moved ourselves out of the area and something else had changed, or maybe wind directions changed. From the spotter plane, you can actually see on the ground what the fire break looked like. This was nearly a 4-kilometer fire break that was pulled in under 3 hours. So again, depending on terrain and the conditions, and the scary thing here was not for the operators actually not be able to see where he's mulching on the ground. So it was critical to have aerial support to make sure that we didn't put the machine into a big hole or actually lose the machine in the space. Okay, so we mulch in eucalyptus. Some of the eucalyptus, like Danii, and some of those hybrids, when you mulch it, the bark turns into a completely different animal. And this is actually the bark that we mulch in field. It literally feels like wool. It covers the machine completely. If you are utilizing a drum speed of under 1,200 RPM and you're not using mulching teeth, it actually binds itself around that drum and will actually stop that drum from turning. We're lucky enough with the speed that we are spinning the drum and the mulching teeth on here, he picks up the head and actually sheds itself off the drum. But in that same time, you're getting all this wool effect landing all over the machine. Even it sucks up against the radiator on the back. We have got a timer on the reverse fan on the back every 30 seconds in this space to also blow the other way and blow the material off. We have compressors on these machines to get the material off. He'll pull off as much as what he can as soon as he gets too much material on the machines. But you can also imagine in the same space, you're to rock in here and you're creating highly flammable material. So again, in this space was another learning curve for us. Yeah, again, just being aware, going into these conditions, and hopefully the client then, when we get into these conditions, allows a fire tender to be close by in case of us creating a fire or the actual machine starting to burn. The machines themselves have very expensive fire suppressor systems on here, also to mitigate the loss of equipment. This just shows some of the teeth wear and tear on the teeth that we utilize. These particular teeth had hit rocks, and the new teeth were put on the center when we're in stumps, and then gradually as they wear down, move them to the sides to maintain the balance of the drum, because at the end of the day, the balance on the drum is critical. You have a vibration, then things start to go wrong in the back end of the machine. We have had vibrations in the past where a diesel filter came loose, and we lost a machine it went up in smoke because the diesel filter collapsed, and fuel landed on the turbo manifold, and Black Cat, as it's called today, was another lesson learned. That's also a lot of large equipment. In the space that we were in, we had to look at an alternative weapon. You don't go to war with a single weapon. So it took a long time to try and find a design or someone willing to help us build equipment in the space that we were in. This particular little tractor, some call it the Noddy tractor, is a vineyard tractor with 68 kilowatts of power. It has oscillating chassis, four-wheel drive, diff lock. The trick behind this machine, as you can see, I'm sitting inside, I'm actually facing backwards. Some of the smallest equipment out there where you can turn the actual seat and console around so that you can face backwards in it. The cage itself was designed locally. There's bash plates on here as well. So we designed this machine particularly for under canopy work. Before it moved up to KZN, we mulched also old pine plantations and where Fynbos had taken over and got in here and actually mulched the material so they could start replanting new plantations. But we also put it through its capabilities. This was standing plantations of pine that was actually thinned out, a lot of organic material lying in between, which we then were able to run through and actually create under canopy or fuel load reduction in the under canopy work. Here's also very critical because of just, some of the areas that you're operating is terrain and the amount of material that's in there, rocks as well. But the whole idea here was to mulch buffer zones through these areas so that if you have fires in the future, you can get the workforce coming through here or smaller fire tenders. So we don't just do under canopy work in the pine as well. Here you'll also see it in a eucalyptus compartment where the undergrowth had just taken over because row spacing was changed. Most of these areas that we go in where eucalyptus is because we have mulched in the past. Otherwise, we would never be able to get through here because of the stumps that would be in the way. So these plantations have been mulched in the past, have been planted, and these again are buffer zones that we are doing in this particular area. You can actually see the equipment running through here, the tractor running through here. The mulching head is on the back of the tractor, but you are driving backwards, so you don't break your neck looking backwards all the time. And of course, with the designated gear choice that we operate through here, in case he does fall into a hole or come across a hole, he's always visual of what's happening in front of him. You can see the tractor actually running through the compartment with a lot of fuel load, then breaking down to ground level. Actually, our only innovation since that's happened is where once we've mulched some of these areas and you haven't got high fuel load coming through, we've taken a mist blower from the vineyards and the orchards out there, and we've actually changed a couple of things on it. As you can see, we've even got hydraulic pipes on the back because of the material that gets picked up in the forestry environment. This is still very new. We've only been running this now for less than a month. But we're starting to really see some amazing results, and of course it's efficiencies of chemicals, because as we know, there's a big pushback against usage of chemicals. So our idea is to use less water per hectare and far less chemicals as well in this space. And so far the trials are really looking good. And also, depending on which area you're going in, we also can target specific areas as required, as chemicals also get developed in this space. A lot of these areas on the verges where tractors and gyros are normally running, where you actually can't run because of the rocks and drainage solutions and everything as well, we can actually run around the sides as well and target those areas, especially where the buffer zones are required. The buffer zones are there because if you have that ultimate firestorm, you can at least try and fight that storm off from your buffer zones. Otherwise, you can lose the whole area without your buffer zones. We've also had to look at some really big equipment just because of the problems at hand. It's not every day we're going to be able to get this kind of equipment in because it's all dollar-based. But if you look at the solutions we've had to look at going forward, you understand that some problems are just too big, and utilizing 400 horsepower equipment would just take too long. This is 550 horsepower equipment that we're actually running as well in specific areas. This particular area was burnt as well, not just because of the large stumps, but because of wet and other mitigating factors in this compartment that it had to be burnt so we could see what we were doing. Just to see the size of these stumps, you can see here compared to a vehicle, just the size of stumps that we had to deal with here. And again, wiping the slate clean and starting again, especially when a lot of these old plantations, when they were planted, you actually haven't got straight lines, or old trees were planted in between, and it's literally impossible to get in here and plant. But you can imagine planting in here and then afterwards trying to harvest it and then trying to extract the timber. Lastly, we don't just operate in a forestry environment. We're also in the bush of bush encroachment, invasive species, and also where farmers need to do land use conversion of where possibly in their areas because of climate change, they've got to change into another crop, but you've got to get rid of what's there currently. To give an example, a lot of guys changing from areas that are not suitable for eucalyptus or wattle, and the guys are now planting macadamias or cashews. But yeah, we're in the space of innovating and looking at sustainability all the time. So on that note, I thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Dion, for that presentation. Very operational and technical and insightful. So just a reminder again to the attendees that we do have the chat. So if you have specific questions that you would want to Dion to respond to, please note them on the chat. Then moving to our next presenter, this is Stephanus Viljoen. He is from Novel Quip Forestry, and he's going to be giving us a very specific presentation on a single head planting solution for the South African conditions. Funny, how we know him, his academic qualifications are BCom in accounting, and then he's also got an MBA from Stellenbosch, and he's been involved in chartered investment analyst qualification. His work experience, he's got a background of 15 years in technology development as well as commercialization. He was first introduced to forestry by the late Dr. Jaap Steenkamp, the founder of Novel Quip Forestry, and then he joined the team in 2015. So he also indicates here that Dr. Jaap's passion for forestry and providing solutions for silviculture mechanization was truly infectious, and it was not long before his vision became his as well. So since then, he's been deeply committed to helping solve this global issue of planting more than trees, just doing it much more efficiently. So his personal interests are being in nature, fishing, as well as he likes hiking with his wife, son, and dog. So thanks so much, Fanny, for making the time. We're looking forward to your presentation. I suppose a solution for South Africa as well as other parts of the world. The sound, I'm not able to hear you yet.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Thank you very much for the intro, Medania, and also for the opportunity. I'm going to talk about Novel Quip's efforts to mechanize silviculture and really help shape the industry through technology and digital innovation, specifically also for the South African context. So Novel Quip was founded in 2009 by the late Dr. Jaap Steenkamp, and we're really committed to transforming silviculture operations through technology, not just in South Africa, but also abroad. I think we've played quite a pioneering role in silviculture mechanization in South Africa, and in particular, our Impact is probably our most common, most well-known product, and it's quite commonplace in the South African forestry industry. Our main focus is mechanization and digital innovation in forestry planting and bringing silviculture to precision to silviculture. You can see a picture there of our Impacts based on a compact excavator. And our mission is to enable sustainable, high-quality planting through appropriate modernization and digital integration. So we're all well familiar with the global challenge we face to plant more trees better at scale as the global populations are growing and standards of living are increasing. The demand on timber and timber byproducts is increasing, and it means that we have to plant timber at quite an unprecedented scale. Billions of seedlings must be planted annually the world over. And unfortunately, traditional and specifically manual methods impose limitations on productivity, repeatability, quality, competitiveness, and profitability, and really can't keep up with the modern demands. So the forestry industry is standing at a critical juncture. Availability of labor, climate change, rising operational costs, are really demanding a fundamental approach in the way we do silviculture work. And mechanized planting offers a potential pathway to achieving higher productivity while improving planting quality, worker safety, and also improving environmental outcomes. Our philosophy is quite specific. We focus on spot cultivation, precise and targeted sustainable planting practices. We believe that spot cultivation has lower environmental impact, has a lower cost, and results in a higher quality of planting. And our philosophy, second pillar of our philosophy is to prioritize quality over quantity. So quality over productivity, and that's because the cost of replanting really increases costs exponentially. Thirdly, our operations must be single operator operations. The tasks must be manageable by one person who can monitor the operation from the cabin. And lastly, we try to consolidate the various functionality needed: soil preparation, planting, irrigation, firming, fertilization, into a single pass solution. Our goal is that there should be no need for blanking. It should be a single pass operation with no need for people to go back and replant seedlings. And our flagship project is that we've been working on for the last 5 years is development of a forwarder-based planting system in collaboration with Ponzi. You can see a picture of the machine there. It's a 4-head solution based on a Ponzi buffalo. It does the soil preparation by way of pitting. It plants the seedlings, firms it, irrigates it with water or gel. The whole machine is electronically controlled and automated. We recently tested a auto steer solution on it, which essentially makes the machine autonomous, except for replenishment. So we've been testing this machine since 2023. It's a versatile machine. We focused on ease of use because it's fully electronically controlled. It's easy to transport. The whole planting system folds onto the load deck of the buffalo. It's multifunction. You can have plant pitting and planting, or plant only if you prefer to do the soil preparation as a separate activity. There is no operator need for the operator to be involved in the operation. The electronic control system is world-class, and it fully automates the planting cycle. And as I described, we've recently also tested the GPS and auto steer solution. We've achieved productivity up to 1,300 seedlings per hour, and quality of up to 96%. It hasn't been without its challenges. We've had to take on many learnings and inputs from customers. We've really have a partnership approach where we work closely with customers and take their input, feed that back into the development cycle. And so we are just busy building our third and hopefully last prototype 4-head planter right now, which should start going into operations by the end of this year. We've tested this now in South Africa, this 4-head configuration in South Africa, Brazil, and Paraguay, and the machine is currently one machine is currently in Finland, and another is en route to Chile at this stage. These machines are really designed for South American conditions where there are very big plantations, lots of virgin land. You don't need to transport the machine often. There's serious lack of labor. And this configuration is really adapted to that. However, in the South African context, we've got unique and specific requirements which demand a different design philosophy from an equipment development point of view. We have short planting windows and machine utilization is a challenge. Rain onset is increasingly unpredictable, and this makes investing in dedicated equipment and larger equipment like you've just seen there, which may be idle outside of the planting window, challenging. Secondly, there's a need in South Africa to balance mechanization employment with unemployment levels in excess of 30%. And for that, mechanization strategies must really look to enhance and not replace rural employment. And that's by shifting from manual labor to skilled, safe, and technology-enabled forestry work. Of course, in South Africa, we've also got lots of challenges with fires, and the silviculture teams are often involved in supporting fire prevention and firefighting. And so you cannot just substitute all that labor with machines, because you still need those people involved in those operations. In terms of operational constraints and cost sensitivity, there's a lack of skilled labor in some areas. The site logistics in terms of the remote sites and size of compartments create specific challenges in terms of floating equipment. The contractor dynamics with small contractors often owning equipment, it means that equipment must be reliable, cost-effective, and easy to use and maintain, and to implement and operate. And so really, in terms of our design philosophy, when looking at the South African context, we need to make a machine simple, reliable, serviceable, and cost-effective, rather than putting more capital-intensive and more complex multi-head systems into the local market. So what we've done is really followed a very modular design philosophy. So the same planting head that you see on that 4-head configuration on the Ponzi Buffalo, we are busy implementing onto an excavator, currently on a 5.5-ton Volvo EC55. And we foresee this also going up to 13-ton machines. We're busy prototyping this at the moment. This machine, we have a capability to do compartment planning with an online platform that gives a planting grid to the machine, and then with the onboard GPS and computer system guides the operator to where each tree needs to be. So there's no need for manual marking. And then the whole planting cycle, except for the driving and placing the head on the right location, is automated. So with the press of a button, the machine executes the pitting and planting, firming, and irrigation, either by water or gel. And then we generate data which can be extracted and put back into our online platform for report generation. So this machine offers precision operations. It has onboard sensors for depth and firming optimization to ensure that we offer repeatable, consistent, and reliable soil preparation and planting, that every seedling is planted the same to ensure quality. We have the ability to extend the planting window with precision irrigation and gel application. The advanced control system provides automatic, repeatable operation and real-time adjustments to maintain optimal planting quality. We essentially cut the operator out, other than driving the base machine and replenishment. So there's no need for the operator to do complex maneuvers with a machine. The system is locally manufactured, so that improves serviceability and parts availability, technical support, and of course makes customization an option as well. So the reason that we believe a single head planter solution is the correct solution for the South African context is because it offers accessible mechanization. this equipment can be implemented on existing equipment, and that really reduces the adoption, the barriers for adoption for smaller contractors and growers. So, for example, we can convert existing MPATs into single head planters. It's cost effective because we are focusing on smaller excavators rather than large 20-ton base machines or forwarders for South Africa. It means that the capital outlays is significantly lower, and so are running costs. So it really becomes an affordable entry point for local mechanization. Then thirdly, the focus should be on job transformation, not elimination. And, you know, a well-designed mechanization strategy should really broaden the employment base by introducing jobs for operators, technical support, logistics, supervisors, and of course also unlocks local manufacturing and assembly opportunities. It's a scalable platform, like I explained, so the same head is used on the forwarder-based solution as is on the excavator, and that gives us some economies of scale, which will also help drive down the cost and make spare parts and training and all of that a lot easier. It's a multi-use platform, really important. We heard from New Zealand earlier that they have similar challenges with short planting windows and dilution of capital investment. So very important for us when choosing the platform is to keep in mind that the customers need to use this equipment outside of the planting window. And for that reason, we offer a range of attachments and quick couplers that can help customers take off the planting head outside of season and then do slash management, mulching, tree shears, to do fire break management, etc. And then, of course, with this machine, we focus on balancing the productivity and quality. There is a trade-off between productivity and quality, and the cost of poorly planted seedlings is exponential. There's the labor for planting 2 or 3 times. There's the energy. There's the cost of the seedling. And these costs should really be taken into account when comparing different types of equipment. Our philosophy is that when calculating planting costs and working on a planting cost per hectare, you need to multiply the productivity by the success rate of the planting to get to your actual productivity. We're looking at the digitalization aspect. It really enables comprehensive quality control and machine data applications. We heard from another presenter earlier that this is not commonplace in South Africa yet, but it is the future. And by implementing machine data applications, we lay the foundation for data-driven silviculture and downstream forestry operations. So already we can do compartment planning with our online system that eliminates the need for manual marking, reduces cost, less supervision. The onboard GPS ensures accurate planting and stocking for optimal stand establishment. The machine automatically tracks operator performance metrics and it helps with productivity benchmarking. The machine offers real-time alerts for errors, which means that the servicing of the machine becomes easier and your quality more consistent. We already offer reporting, so that helps with quality assurance documentation for audit trails, invoicing, and certification. And then in future, that data can be used for predictive analytics, such as survival prediction models and feedback loops for continuous improvement in operations and in mechanization. So digitalization transforms the planting into data-rich operation, creating valuable visibility into planting operations and enabling evidence-based management decisions and continuous process optimization. Longer term, I think the future impact on the value chain will include integration with the nursery, so that we can have insight into seedling provenance, genetics, conditioning history, and to follow each tree through the life cycle. operation management in terms of supporting fleet and workforce management, optimizing equipment utilization, maintenance scheduling, and labor deployment, and site condition mapping correlated with planting parameters on the equipment. Digital auditing becomes easier, so does traceability, and the generation of comprehensive documentation for sustainability reporting and certification imperatives. And then, of course, AI being the buzzword, if we start generating this data, we lay a foundation for AI and predictive silviculture and machine learning models to leverage on that planting data to forecast growth and survival. We believe that modernized silviculture should be the backbone, the digital backbone for intelligent forestry operations. All of this really starts with the planting operation, and if we start generating the data there and implementing digitalized solutions, we lay the foundation for backward and forward integration throughout the forestry value chain. So in terms of the next steps, our prototype single-head planter will be tested with strategic partners locally in field conditions in Q1 2026. We are continually improving the performance and reliability. We've already tested these planting heads in diverse conditions and diverse operator customer requirements. So we already have a very good base to work from, and now it's a question of testing those operating principles in the South African market. And we aim to launch the first commercial models in Q3 and 4 next year. So we invite customers to join us in refining the planter for their unique conditions and requirements. Customer feedback helps shape the final product, and so early adopters that commit to testing and buying machines early on, they'll get priority access and performance advantages in the medium and longer term. So we invite customers to work together with us to modernize silviculture, ensuring safer, smarter, and more sustainable planting operations. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Fanny, for that presentation. Very interesting work that you are busy with, and both current and future looking. So we're looking forward to seeing the technology introduced within the plantations. So we have now completed the first session, and we are now going to go to the Q&A part, wherein I will pose several questions across to the presenters. And then we will have a short break, then resume to finish off the second session. So just looking through, I know some of the questions have been responded to on the chat, but I'll just try and distribute the questions across all the speakers so that they can be able to respond. Just one here that I'm picking up from the very beginning. There is one that says, "Hi, how can we please have a bit more information on improved mechanized hand tools for pruning?" Then perhaps, Claire, you can just elaborate a little bit more about what solutions are there, and we've seen what you are looking at as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yes, I wrote the comment there as it's getting quite late here now, and I just wanted to make sure my brain was still working. So we have used some battery-powered electric pruners, and specifically it's the Pelnet pruner, which I believe was, I think, a German design, but with our Pinus radiata in New Zealand, with its large whorls, we did have some challenges with the cutting head. So because this is more typically used in horticulture, so we have actually undertaken a project to increase the cutting head on that. We have trialed that, and that's looking really good. So we're looking to have a range of those made up for our use here in New Zealand. We've also looked, I'm not sure if you have a similar concept, but particularly in horticulture, again, apples, cherries, we use what's known as a cherry picker or a high work platform. And so we have also been looking at a 4-wheel drive hydraulic version of that has the integrated pruners.
So that work can then have far less reduction, I guess, in fatigue and the potential to go higher up the tree. That has also looked really good, and we did a short time and motion study on that. It's obviously not an all-terrain solution, so it doesn't work across really tricky terrain, but we are currently looking at a slight adaptation to that to make it slightly more practical. The other area that we are currently looking at is exoskeletons. So how can we support elements of the body? And in that work, we are just currently producing a review of exoskeletons in the world. So that will be available on our website, fgr.nz, which is where we publish all of our reports related to this. And we understand that there are particularly exoskeletons used within the aircraft industry for engineers that do above head work that could be quite applicable to this.
Okay. Maybe just a second one so that we're done with you. The question here is more about pathogens. There's a couple that look at pathogens and just the process of detection and what technologies you are using to differentiate between what exactly the issue is. Do you maybe just want to give an overall comment on that?
Yes, there were quite a few comments there. So I also put the link to the technology. So my understanding there is there's what's effectively quite a powerful fan, and it has lots of sensors also included in it. It is constantly maintaining a airflow operating across a 24/7 time frame and effectively capturing anything within its area that it can. And then it has a high resolution microscope and a transparent sticky tape where it brings all of those together into a controlled environment, capturing hundreds of images as well, and then has so it's using both advanced microscopic and hyperspectral techniques, and then using AI algorithms to detect. So obviously, again, this is another one that's been commonly used in horticulture, so it knows the pathogens that are commonly seen in those areas. Right now, it doesn't know the pathogen that we want it to know, which is terminal crook. And so we have been trying to naturally train it in an environment where we know terminal crook exists, but we've also been trying to spike it and enforce, I guess, on it what it looks like so that we can speed up the training process. But yeah, I encourage you to go and have a look on their website. And if you have specific questions in more detail, they will be able to help you with that.
Thanks, Claire. And then for Teminkosi, here's one question from Mr. Leonard Makakula, who says, notwithstanding the uneven distribution of digitization amongst the stakeholders, what else specific to do actions on the ground can be done to increase the level of digitization in the industry in general? Do you want to just maybe comment on that?
Okay, thank you for that question from Mr. Makakula. So from what we found, the uneven distribution of digitalization amongst stakeholders. So the next step, I think, isn't just about adding more digital tools. It's about making them usable, accessible on the ground. So practically, that means maybe improving connectivity in plantation areas because poor signal is still one of the bigger challenges that we have. And it also means building digital skills through maybe short trainings for contractors and supervisors. I think we also need models for smaller growers, things like shared access systems, subsidized maybe licenses, and finally encouraging integration tools so that safety operations and payroll systems can be able to then talk to each other. So I think in short, maybe the goal should be about to make technology fit fit the people and the working environment. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Thanks for that response, Timikosi. Then Dion, for your side, there's basically two here. Has the use of mulching extraction lines showed any cost savings or environmental benefits? That's from Amatle. And then Joan has also indicated that what considerations could harvesting implement to facilitate productive use of targeted mulchers, for instance, windrow arrangement of slash. Sort of a 2-in-1.
Yeah, okay. So I think when it comes to the mulching on the extraction lines, is that your equipment your equipment that's now following up and removing the timber out there. You've actually got equipment running on top of mulch. Okay, so that mitigates on the compaction side quite considerably. Again, depending on the kind of soils or the areas you're operating and the volumes of mulch that you're dealing with. Some areas you're sitting with 30 cubes of mulch back there. In other areas, we've got up to 80 cubes of mulch back there. There are two studies out there that do touch on this question. Also, for the contractor side, it's the speed and sustainability of the equipment running through these areas as well. So it comes down to the productivity on the equipment. I don't think people realize how big the stump problem has been in the past year and what equipment has to get through. So when you've got breakdown on equipment, that's standing time. And also when you're breaking equipment, often you're breaking equipment, it's going to have environmental impacts if you've got hydraulic leaks or oils or anything like that's happening in the plantations as well. So it's a matter of it's allowing machines not to be as productive as possible without breaking down in that space. On the ground itself, I think on the environmental side, there's a very good study out there with mulching versus burning. I think that people need to get into that one and actually read on that exactly what was found on that one. When it comes to on the harvesting side, it comes down to future harvesting. The lower the stump is, the less we as mulchers have to worry about the stumps itself and worry about breaking the material down to make a better quality mulch. Also looking at, if you look at on the eucalyptus side, every tree that's growing, and in Zulu they call it msila, the tails of every tree. Every tail is left in field. And we've got to break that material down. At the same time, we're trying to work through stumps. So if one can utilize that as a biomass where there's a market for that, and only leave the organic material behind that actually has the NPs and K and the volumes of organic material, and it would be a great help. Your mulching quality would be so much better, because as soon as your timber gets into cellulose form, then the more difficult it is for us to mulch through. So I think on the harvesting side, also depending on how you're lying the slash down or the timber down, some areas you have a heavier brush line and then a lighter one. And if you're trying to go through speed over ground, the heavier one means that you've got to slow down. So all of that, every time we slow down to process the material that's in front of us, the costs go up. So there's quite a few variables again in this space. And one only realizes that when you're in field, at the moment there's no substitute for horsepower. But going forward, I think that can be reduced depending on how we manage what we used to call post-harvest waste, which is actually a post-harvest unutilized resource.
Thanks, Dion, for that response. And perhaps for you, Fanny, there's one here from Manda Mamatuncha, and he says, to Novel Cape, what is the accuracy of the GPS system in both planting and pitting or marking operations? And currently, is it widely used considering forestry conditions they operate in?
Yeah, this solution is already quite widely used on our impact pitting equipment in South Africa. It's the same solution for the single head planter. The accuracy is on our standard version is 100 mils. With a slightly more expensive correction service, you can go as close as 10 mil or even 10 millimeters or even closer. But we don't consider that really being needed in planting operations, considering the size of the stumps. So we don't think that's worth the extra cost, and that 100 millimeter is accurate enough. And the system works that in terms of the mechanized planting, that the operator is only guided once to the planting spot. After that, the machine executes the pitting and planting cycle on the same spot. So there's no need for the operator to bring in an additional piece of equipment for the planting cycle. It's one movement per full cycle.
Okay, and then there's just another one from Offense who indicates, is the single head considered soil efficient? And meaning, in other words, does it minimize soil disturbance and compaction? Or is there still a significant risk of soil damage during planting?
Yeah, it follows, our pitting heads follow the minimum till philosophy. Our objective is to reduce soil erosion, to reduce the impacts on soils, and also with the use of smaller excavators in our solutions, the compaction is also reduced. So yeah, we believe it is beneficial for the soils.
And a last one is, can you share productivity figures for the planter? What are the limitations?
Yeah, so
yeah,
let's start with a 4-head planter. For pitting and planting, we've got up to about 800 seedlings per hour. Of course, it does depend on the underfoot conditions and slope. In planter only, so if the soil preparation has been done separately, we get about 1,300 seedlings per hour. That machine has been tested up to 16 degrees lateral and longitudinal inclination. However, for safety reasons, we limit that to 15 degrees longitudinal up and down slopes and 8 degrees lateral. On the single head planter, initial results are about 120 seedlings per hour. We believe we'll get that up to 150 to 160 seedlings per hour for pitting and planting. That machine also has a capability to only plant and without pitting, in which case that figure almost doubles. What was the last part of that question?
Yeah, I think it was just, I think productivity figures you've covered and what are the limitations. So I think it's all clear. Then maybe a last one, there's one here from Erwin Lowe, that's for Dion. Any solutions on plant survival after complete mulching was applied and pitted with mechanical pitters, with reference mainly to saw timber pine compartments with 24-year rotations plus? Experience in Mpumalanga high-flood region was that survival was poor on young pine established compartment, mainly due to mulching residue ending up in the planting pits, causing air pockets.
Yeah, okay. So again, there's so many variables in this space. In some areas where we've mulched, if the guys mulch wrong and you plant a seedling and suddenly you have a massive thunderstorm downpour, you're almost drowning the plant. Also, the guys that are pitching and planting, is the material planted actually in soil or in the mulch itself? Again, as I said, lots of variables. Also soils, the soils that you're planting in. If the soil pit isn't deep enough, or it's in shale or something like that, there's mitigating factors as well. We've had, and on the other side of it, where seedlings have been planted in sands or in burnt areas where high wind has actually sandblasted and killed the seedlings, where the mulch has protected them as well. We have videos on that showing as well. So again, there's lots of variables because of not just on the mulching side, but it's right through the chain from planting to also what happens after the planting. What conditions happened after that. We've had areas where areas have been planted, and then other circumstances have happened in those fields. So again, in a situation like that, I won't know the whole history of it, but if I picked up more information, I'd be able to work out exactly possibly what happened there or what is the reason behind that. So it could also be that when you're also mulching, sometimes we used to in the past mulch and almost the next day the guys were planting. In other areas you're mulching and they're only planting 2-3 months after. So the breakdown of that material, how long is it taking down for that material to break down? And also again, the quality of seedlings. So there's numerous factors again in this space that could be mitigating to this problem.
Thank you so much. There's a couple of other questions, and I see that the presenters have been responding on the chat, but due to time, I want to end here so that we can have a short break. So At the moment, the presenters will have a group photo before we depart. And I just want to take this moment and thank Claire. She's in New Zealand, so it's getting quite late, and she needs to proceed with other activities tomorrow. And we just want to take this opportunity and thank you, Claire, for making the time and sharing insights about what is happening in New Zealand. And we really appreciate your time in terms of sharing your presentation and what is happening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And so what we will do is that we are going to take a short break. I'll just try and pull back about 5 minutes. So we'll take a comfort break so that we can start with the second session at 1:10. At 1:10, let's start with the second session. Thank you so much. Right, good afternoon, everyone. So we can start with our second session. And thank you for your patience. And again, we apologize that we are behind the program because of the late start. But up to so far, it has been a good first session. And we are going to proceed with the second session. And without wasting any further time, we are going to have a presentation by Mr. Darren Stone. And he will be presenting on the smart traceability of forestry nurseries. And he will be looking at some of the technologies that can be used with respect to nurseries and being able to trace seedlings as well as all the different resources that are there. So just a little bit about Darren, that he's got a BSc in agriculture from the Stellenbosch University. He's worked at wineries in Stellenbosch, Franschhoek, Napa Valley, California, and then he worked with Sean Biggs at Sutherland's Seedlings, gaining valuable experience in nursery and young plant propagation. Then he later joined his father at the family dairy business in Limpopo before relocating to Western Australia. Darren has been with Eleport since 2019 and is currently the business development manager for Africa and Asia Pacific. He focuses on expanding Eleport's presence in Africa and the Asia Pacific region. His work centers on fostering strategic partnerships during sustainable and driving sustainable growth, as well as helping clients implement Eleport solutions across various agriculture industries. Darren enjoys outdoor activities such as hiking and camping and great wines. Darren, thank you so much for availing yourself to present on this topic, and we're looking forward to your presentation. Over to you. Oh, sorry, Darren, you're still muted. There we go.
Good day, and thank you, Mudani, for the introduction and this opportunity. Today, I would like to share with you how Eleport has taken the next step in our journey to a new era of digitalization that helps forestry nurseries work smarter. I'm looking forward to share how we're using 30 years of horticultural experience to build tools that will make nurseries more connected and more efficient and ready for the future. Founded in Esbjerg in Denmark in 1993, Eleport started with machines, paper, and trays for our Eleport paper pot system, a pioneering idea that has transformed propagation by helping growers produce better quality plants while reducing waste and improving efficiency. Over 30 years, we've built systems trusted by growers in more than 130 countries, producing over 10 billion Elepots each year. Our integrated system is proven for quality and sustainability, but now we're evolving again, taking everything we've learned about our physical systems and connecting it digitally to build a complete data foundation for producing the perfect young plant. Forestry nurseries, as we know, are under increasing pressure to grow more trees faster with fewer skilled hands and tighter sustainability expectations. Much of the operational knowledge still lives in people's heads or on paper, and when experienced staff move on, much of that knowledge is lost. Tracking and planning are often manual, leaving quality and efficiency to judgment rather than data. The overall challenge is quite clear. How do we capture this expertise and turn it into a connected, repeatable system that improves with every season? And that's exactly what digitalization enables. keeping the knowledge, measuring the process, and giving growers the insight to make every season better than the last. So imagine this. What if you could trace every plant from start to finish, knowing exactly what substrate mix was used when the specific Elipot was made, which tray, from which batch did this specific tray or plant come from? What if you could see why one batch thrived while another struggled? What if trays tracked themselves and your planning was predictive, not reactive? And what if you had all of that insight in one simple dashboard? That's the vision behind Elipot Grow Smart, turning what ifs into what's next. Elipot Live was our first step into digitalization, and it changed the way our customers think about production. It connects the operator directly to real-time Elipot machine data, providing operators and managers with instant visibility into production speed, downtime, maintenance needs, and many more data points. But it's more than a dashboard. It's a productivity and quality tool. Operators can see when adjustments are needed, maintenance teams can be notified automatically, and managers can monitor performance remotely across multiple machines or nurseries if needed. The result is fewer interruptions, better consistency, and measurable efficiency gains. Elipot Live turns every machine into a smart, connected asset, a foundation for the full Elipot Grow Smart platform, and just as important, it's easy and intuitive, designed for growers and operators, not IT experts, giving every nursery access to data-driven decision-making for their Elipot machines. So Elipot Live is what we have now and where we are now. But where do we want to get to, and how will we achieve those what I mentioned earlier? Most nurseries already generate data, but it's scattered across machines, logs, spreadsheets, and other systems. And that is where our Elipot Grow Smart ecosystem will connect those dots. Once connected, that data becomes powerful. It's no longer just information, it's insight that can optimize quality, yield, and cost. And that's the shift from recording to improvement that we're looking for. No matter where you go in the world and across the 130 countries that we're involved in, the same frustrations come up again and again. Growers struggle with incomplete traceability. It's hard to link results back to the very start of propagation. Quality control still depends too much on experience and not enough on data. So consistency varies from one operator to another. Trays go missing and get mixed between batches, adding cost and confusion. Resource and nursery space planning is manual, often making it difficult to see bottlenecks before they happen. And because much of this information is scattered across systems or not recorded at all, most nurseries still don't have a clear view of their true production costs. Our Elipot Grow Smart aims to change that. It brings all these moving parts together in one digital system, giving growers real visibility, better control, and a foundation for continuous improvement. It links data from substrate mixes, trays, and production batches into one central platform that captures everything in real time. For over 30 years, we've seen the same challenges repeat themselves across nurseries around the world. The operator's skill is critical, but when that operator or nursery manager moves on, so does much of the knowledge and experience. Each new person brings their own methods, and the good ideas from the last one are often forgotten. Grow Smart can change that. It creates a living digital memory, a central repository of your nursery's knowledge and best practices built from site-specific data. It's more than SOPs on the wall, it's the actual data behind every decision and action, available, comparable, and transferable, so consistency isn't lost when people change. That's why the first phase of our Grow Smart is all about building a complete data foundation for producing the perfect young plant. It replaces gut feeling with insight, couples experience with evidence, and ensures the quality you build today stays in the system tomorrow. This is the natural evolution of Elipot. We began by engineering the physical system, our machines, paper, and trays, and now we're creating the digital ecosystem that sits around it. The same focus on quality, control, and efficiency, but now enhanced with data, insight, and automation. But it doesn't just stop with our ELIPods. GrowSmart brings together not just ELIPod data, but also connects existing external technologies that currently have been operating in silos. Climate sensors, irrigation controllers, etc. can all feed into one central dashboard. By integrating these technologies, we help nurseries manage everything from one place, turning disconnected tools into a unified intelligence that drives smarter growing decisions. Phase 1 of GrowSmart implementation, expected in Q1 26, is about creating the foundation, creating a digital backbone that everything else will build on. The focus is on two key things: traceability and quality control. Every tray gets a digital identity that connects it to the key production steps, from the substrate mix to the moment it leaves the nursery. That means every adjustment, every operator, every mix is recorded and traceable. Most nurseries today rely on memory or spreadsheets, which makes consistency hard to maintain. When staff change, knowledge is lost. GrowSmart keeps that experience within the nursery, so production knowledge becomes permanent and accessible, not dependent on one person. It also shifts growers from reacting to problems to preventing them. If conditions start to move outside of the targeted range, the system alerts you immediately. The focus moves from firefighting to control. And this foundation is what allows us to consistently produce the perfect young plant, the ultimate goal for all of us. It's the first step towards prediction, automation, and ultimately, as we see coming, AI. Once the data is structured, it can tell us what really drives growth and quality, and that's how we start future-proofing nurseries for what's ahead. Substrate mix and substrate mixing accuracy plays a significant role in young plant quality. After all, it's where the entire process starts. Most nurseries still rely on manual judgment, and that means variation. Even with the same recipe, two operators can mix slightly differently. Moisture levels may vary, blending time is inconsistent, or ingredient ratios aren't kept exact. And those small deviations can change how plants perform later in the nursery. There's almost never a record of the exact EC, moisture content, or mixing duration used. So when a batch performs differently months later, you're guessing at the cause. GrowSmart will fix that. We are developing a new substrate mixer equipped with all the required sensors to capture critical data for every single mix, every batch, and ultimately down to every tray. The goal is to produce the same mix every single time and standardizing production quality across operators. This smart mixer will integrate directly with GrowSmart, ensuring that each mix is precisely documented and traceable. It measures and logs moisture, EC, pH, mix time, and other parameters automatically, allowing growers to compare batches to improve recipes over time. It's another example of how ELIPod is turning decades of experience into digital tools that make consistency, precision, and prediction possible. That means we can finally compare data across batches and see what drives that perfect young plant. This is the digital foundation we spoke about, moving from gut feel to measurable, repeatable precision. Once data is captured accurately, it doesn't just explain what happens, but it will help predict what's coming. Tray management on the surface might seem simple, but as we know, it's costly when trays go missing. RFID technology has advanced dramatically in recent years. It's more affordable, more compact, and easier to integrate than ever before. By incorporating RFID tagging into GrowSmart, every tray can carry a unique digital identity that's automatically scanned through each stage of production, transport, and planting. Imagine being able to quickly and painlessly scan trays in and out of holding nurseries or trucks, for example. This gives nurseries and field operations total visibility over tray movement, reduces losses, and helps coordinate logistics between the nursery and the field. RFID also enables more efficient workflows. No more manual counting or tracking spreadsheets. Every scan updates the system instantly. This technology is now becoming accessible to forestry nurseries of all sizes and will be a core element of GrowSmart, helping bring full traceability and operational efficiency to the entire value chain. GrowSmart will help nurseries plan proactively. It forecasts substrate, labor, and space needs using live production data before bottlenecks happen. It tracks energy, water, and fertilizer use, helping growers optimize both costs and environmental footprint. This is how we start turning nursery data into real-time decisions. All of this information will be displayed in a single dashboard, clear, visual, and accessible anywhere. Managers can instantly see output, cost, and quality data in real time. That visibility gives them control, transparency, and confidence, a big part of improving the propagation experience. It's the one window to the whole nursery, and that is going to give power back to growers. And there is no doubt that we are in the early stages of the AI revolution, and the nursery industry will be no exception to this. AI will change how we grow plants, but it needs one important thing first: reliable, site-specific data. And that's exactly what we're building today. With batch-level data from GrowSmart, we'll soon be able to use machine learning to predict growth curves, survival rates, and even optimal dispatch timing. This is how we future-proof nurseries, by laying the foundations for AI and automation before the revolution fully arrives. AI can't function fully without structured, reliable data that is specific to your environment and specific to your situation. What we're collecting now with every batch, every input, every reading becomes the training data that will drive future automation. And the key here is, again, is that it's your data, site-specific, not generalized data from somewhere else in the world. By collecting this data today, Elipot growers are building the foundation for self-learning predictive systems for when they arrive tomorrow. But the vision doesn't stop in the nursery. We're connecting the full plant journey, from Elipot production to the field planting and beyond. Batch data can link field survival rates, growth, and harvest timing, creating a complete digital record that supports sustainability claims and certification. And we saw Stefano speak about that as well in his presentation earlier, about how we can integrate the field and the nursery. And this is a potential that GrowSmart can do. That's full traceability from seed to forest and from forest to harvest, with the ability to trace back from the compartment to the specific substrate mixed when those Elipots were produced. Every step is documented and traceable, supporting sustainability and certification goals. For forestry, this means complete transparency, proving where each tree began and how it was grown. We can give forestry nurseries the data needed for certification, environmental reporting, and ESG transparency. This is information investors and retailers increasingly demand, and it's a space Elipot is uniquely positioned to play a part in. At Elipot, though, we don't just build the technology independently, we build it with our partners. We're co-developing GrowSmart with key growers, ensuring it fits real-world needs. Our role is to guide this journey, helping nurseries capture the right data today to unlock the benefits of AI tomorrow. It's not just a product, it's going to be a partnership. And to close, our vision is clear. Elipot is building a complete data foundation for producing the perfect young plant, helping nurseries grow smarter, more efficiently, and more sustainably. Starting now with our Elipot Live machine platform and moving into phase one of GrowSmart shortly. From paper to data, from systems to ecosystems, we're connecting the full journey. Together, we're not just ready for the digital future, we're helping you shape it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Darren. Surely an exciting future when it comes to nurseries and what is happening there when it comes to traceability as well as the integration of systems. So definitely looking forward to seeing some of these technologies in nurseries. So as we move on, I'm now going to move along, and we are going to have a presentation by Mr. Halish Nagel. He's from Terra Lab in Australia, and He is going to present about using advanced mapping tools to improve forest operations, more specifically silviculture, and the management associated with it. Just a little bit about Ali is that he's a special ecologist and is the director of Terra Lab and primary developer of the STA logger system. He has over 20 years experience in conservation, wherein he has served many industries, including water, energy, mining, and forestry. He is a published academic researcher and focusing on threatened species. Ali, thank you so much for making the time to present from Australia. So we're looking forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope everyone can hear me and see the presentation.
Yes, I can see from my side. Thanks.
My name's Harley Schnagel. I'm the director at TerraLab and developer of the Starlogger system. Today, I'm going to be speaking about using automatic mapping hardware during various stages of tree establishment to obtain stand metrics. The top picture shows the future we're all anticipating, I guess, and some of you are starting to work with those sorts of technologies now and have been for a little while now. But as Claire said, in many landscapes, boots on the ground will always be part of the solution. And knowing that, they shouldn't be left out of the digital workflows. What we have is what we've developed are the Starlogger devices and the Star system, which are land management tracking tools. On the left, we have the original Starlogger. It's the most robust. It's was developed originally for backpack sprayers and is most suitable for that situation. The Star Explorer is the next one, the miniaturized and most versatile for planting and spraying. And the Starlogger HA with centimeter level potential. A little bit about the technology first before I get into the case studies, just so you understand how it works. It's designed to be totally autonomous. It requires little technical ability by the user. No Bluetooth, no app, no setup, no on-off switch, anything like that. Just hook it up, and once you start working, it senses it and starts tracking and records everything it needs to record as you go. Just clip it on and forget it's there. It stores data on the device, so there's no cell service issues or anything like that, and it has hands-free uploading at the end, so no file management or anything. Just produces objective, repeatable data all day, every day. A single device isn't permanently fixed to a single tool. It can be moved between tools. So on Monday, your contractors could be out spraying, then they could on Tuesday take the same device off, put it on tree planting tools and be mapping tree planting. Then Wednesday, put it on their high volume sprayers, that sort of thing. It also fits onto booms, seed spreaders, cut and paint equipment, and can be used as a handheld mapping tool as well. Now I'll get into the case studies. I'll go through 4. They're in sequence, roughly akin to planting establishment sequence. Starting with site prep, 2 for planting and 1 for maintenance and monitoring. The first one is tracking site prep to verify completion and estimate stocking before planting. This is from a carbon forestry project in Canada, and I understand not all forestry operations, in fact, probably most don't have a prep requirement at the start, similar to this situation, but it does help highlight the application of the technology in a forest setting. I'll just I thought a video would help you understand the data and what it looks like. It's simplest to show it. This is spraying pasture grasses in planting zones for preparation. The dashed lines are where the operators were moving. and the colored areas are where they were applying herbicide. There's an algorithm in the software that detects how long the trigger was pressed and when it was moving, so it estimates a footprint on the ground of where the herbicide was applied. So you can sum it up and estimate the area covered and things like that as well. The colors are based on the classification toggle on the thumb, in the thumb position, as you can see there with the red glove. So in this case there, I'm not even sure what the classification was intended to be, but it can be for different plant species in a planting situation or different weed species in weed control. But ultimately what the users of the product got out of this application was they were able to use the point data that's generated from it, not pictured there, to estimate how many plants they were going to be installing into that stocking area. The next one is using the star logger on a tree planter in Uruguay. Now, I understand people who have been part of this webinar before will have heard Santiago speak about this last year, so I won't go into too much detail, but I will show the application of the technology overall. The star logger was integrated onto the side of their Silviculture tree planter, and it's mechanically triggered by pressing the foot pedal that opens up the planting hole. Using the QR code there, you can link to Santiago's presentation from last year if you want to get into the details of it. It goes into far more detail than I'm going to go into here. This is just a rapid overview of the application of the technology. Their primary goal was to improve traceability of planting so they can understand the causes of plant mortality and improve decision making. And overall, the outcome was that this was achieved through their study. From the onset, they always, Santiago's team, Ferrando and Associates, always indicated a desire to achieve sub-foot accuracies, which wasn't possible with the star logger originally. I guess now it is with the star logger HA, and that's the next one that I'm going to touch on. This is using the star logger HA to obtain accuracies of less than 30 centimeters sub-foot. Much better than that, but we'll get into that. This project involves testing in both Australia by us, TerraLab, and Forest Scrolls Research in New Zealand. This version of the logger has a differential GNSS built in and records additional information, making it suitable for post-processed kinematic or PPK workflows. It is centimeter level capable, depending on the position of your base station. But in practice, it is probably best to consider it decicentimeter level accuracy. I'm sure you can understand that the positioning and movement of the operators means that the actual location that it records at the time of planting is going to wobble or, not be as precise as centimeter level. The device has an accelerometer in it which detects the movement of the tree planter and can detect the tree planting actions automatically. It's highly suitable for using with something like the Silviculture or the Podpicity tram planters, but we'll get into some technical issues that we've had in the next slide. The New Zealand team identified that an issue during high G situations. During high G acceleration, the receiver's carrier tracking loops can't follow the rapid Doppler and phase rate changes, causing a loss of carrier phase lock and cycle slips. So when that happens, RTK and PPK solutions collapse to float or standard GPS accuracy. Standard GPS, which relies on code phase tracking rather than carrier phase, is far more tolerant to these dynamics and continue to provide reliable meter level positioning throughout the event. But in other words, the rapid ramming of the shovel creates errors that the GPS couldn't resolve at that time, making the accuracies balloon out a little bit, or a lot in some situations. We have trialed again and run some software updates, and we have a few pathways forward to retain that. A few potential solutions, but we can't report on the full findings yet because we're still working through it. But for short drops, we can resolve that through software fixes, similar to the workflows that, you know, with my background, similar to what we would use in animal tracking in conservation and things like that. What you would use with gaps in data there, but they're just for small drops in the signal. The main solution will be that we're trying to decouple the accelerometer from the GPS device. So the accelerometer will be on its own on the spade, and the GPS device stored on the operator, hooked onto the operator, and there'll be a offset applied to that position. So only the accelerometer goes through the rapid G-forces and the GNSS device won't. The final one is a case study from the Pacific Northwest USA, where a forestry company used the weed spraying adaptation in a forestry setting to estimate survivorship during relief spraying. If you're not familiar with the term, I know in forestry, every different region calls each different phase of operations a different thing and whatnot. But so just in case you're not aware, relief spraying is just the spraying around the stem that occurs in some particularly grassier or shrubbier habitats to knock down the weeds or the competition from the tree that's being planted. In this case, the relief spraying was conducted 6 months after planting, and the star logger was used to estimate tree density based on where spraying was occurring and where it wasn't, basically. So every spray event represented a living tree. The data was then compared to plot-based density assessment carried out on site. We processed the standard star logger data and compared it to that plot-based data. You can see it there on the right, collected during timber cruising. And we found that the star logger estimated data was generally within 1 tree per 200 meters squared of the original plot count data. Here's the processed outputs of the data shown as point density map on the left and the inverse of the point density map as relating to the density, the ideal density that they wanted in those plots. You can see I've overlaid the track where the track is. It's showing the track as a low density area, but you can see other low density patches as well. So you can interpret that as a replanting map, if you will. Here is the same data used in a live dashboard just to get the, you know, the metrics flowing through. I've removed the base maps from this information just to hide where the, you know, what forestry company this was. They were happy to use the data but not divulge who they were. And you can see the just from the spraying data here, you can see the tree count and mean tree density for each of these plots as we pan around. So basically for an activity they were going to complete anyway, the relief spraying, they're getting that extra density or stocking data. So overall, relief spraying was conducted about 6 months after planting. Each tree had the weeds around its base sprayed to minimize competition, and the data from the star logger was used to estimate the tree density and compared to plot-based density assessments carried out on site. Ultimately, the core design of the star system makes it versatile and adaptable to a range of forestry applications. It has uses in prep work, tree planting, post-planting spraying, all possible from a single device. You can get to the website if you want to know more through the QR code, but otherwise, thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Ali, for that interesting presentation. And very interesting that there's a lot more data that we can gather from traditionally known manual systems. And that can help with planning as well as knowing what is happening on the ground. So thank you for the presentation. It was very insightful. We are now going to proceed and do the final presentation. And this presentation will be done by Beatrice. And Beatrice, just a little bit about her. She will present about the application of drones for stand monitoring and survival assessment after regeneration. And Beatrice, she is a forest engineer who qualified from UNESP Botucatu in Brazil. Currently, she's a PhD candidate in the integrated graduate program in bioenergy with USP, UNESP, and UNICAMP. With regards to working experience, Bia has experience in mechanization of silvicultural operations, automation, and bioenergy. She works as a project manager in research projects involving forestry machinery, covering planting operations, maintenance, precision silviculture, and nursery automation. Currently, she's the technical executive coordinator at the cooperative program on forest mechanization and automation at the Institute of Forest Research and Studies, also known as IPEF. She's also co-supervising undergraduate students and leading research on forestry mechanization and nursery automation. So Bia, thank you so much for making the time to present about this interesting work, which is continuously growing. And just an encouragement again to the attendees, we will go to the Q&A after this, but please just note down any questions that we will be able to pose to the presenters after Bia is done. Bia, over to you. Looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Professor Moidani, for introducing me. Hello, everyone. It's an honor to be here representing Brazil in this important event. Thank you, Professor Moidani, for the opportunity. And today I will speak a little bit about a POC that we did here in Brazil to monitor seedling survival using drones. We did this POC with the University of São Paulo State, UNESP, as a partner. Just to initiate my presentation, I would like to contextualize a little bit about the Brazilian forest sector. We are a reference in productivity, especially when we talk about eucalyptus plantations. This year, we achieved the 10.52 million hectares of planted forests, considering eucalyptus, pinus, and other species. We can produce an average of 34 cubic meters per hectare per year, and we still have many challenges as rising production costs, short labor shortages, and the pursuit of greater operational efficiency. And one of the bottlenecks that we have here is the monitoring seedling survival, because it's still a manual process and a time-consuming activity. So we need improve this process, because here in Brazil, we have plots with 20 hectares in São Paulo State, in our farms, and other farms in other states as Mato Grosso do Sul. We can achieve plots of 80 hectares. So it's a very hard activity to monitor the seedling survival, and companies need do this monitoring to plan the replanting or not. It's important seed that here in Brazil we have cycles with 6 or almost 7 years to harvest eucalyptus. So it's a very fast cycle when we compare with other countries. And as we have a trend in the world to increasing the use of digital technologies, automation, robotics, increase the level of mechanization in our operations, we decided do this POC to try improve the process of the monitoring survival seedlings. Well, with this POC, we have an overall objective, and to contextualize, this is our conventional way to planting until the replanting process. So we planting in a manual or mechanized way. After 15 days, we check the mortality, and when we check this mortality, the labor needs walk and online, maybe skip 3 or 4 lines, walk in the fifth line. So it's a very, very hard work, because here some places we can achieve 42 degrees Celsius, and it's a very tiredness work to do manually. And after 10 days, we need to do the replanting if it's needed. Some companies consider 2% of mortality as a maximum to do the replanting, other companies 5%, other 8%. And our idea in the POC was do the planting after 15 days, do a drone flight, detect seedlings, alive and in dead seedlings. In 5 days, have this map from analysis by AI, identify each dead seedling, and after 5 days, do the replanting using some technology, just to identify in the plot where the dead seedlings are and help the employee to do the replanting easily. So we started the POC in 2023, and we tried to verify which sensor, RGB, multispectral, or LiDAR, could best detect seedlings, and also test seedlings detection in different stages, in 30, 60, and 180 days after planting. In 2024, we tried to detect smaller seedlings with 15 days after planting and improve the AI. In 2025, the company that is our partner developed an application to support the process of replanting, and us validate the application using real conditions in some companies, forest companies. The methodology that we followed across all years was the same. We did a field protocol standardized, and here we have the first step, that was the plot allocation. So we have a big plot with 30 hectares per company. Inside this big plot, we allocated this small plot with 1 hectare. Inside this plot, we qualified each seedling, considering dead seedlings, alive, tilted, buried seedlings, inclinated seedlings, dry leaves, to help the drone flight detect these seedlings and training the AI to identify and qualify the seedlings out of this plot. After all this process, it's important to see that we georeferenced each seedling inside this plot to help the process of analysis. And after this process, we have this mortality map to help the process of planning of replanting. So here in each red point, we have dead seedlings. In yellow, we have the plots. And to do this work across all the years, we consider the work in 3 states, São Paulo, Mato Grosso do Sul, and Minas Gerais. Work with 5 forest companies and 14 plots with 30 hectares and areas with reforestation and establishment to compare the accuracy between both areas, especially reforestation, because in these areas, like this picture here, we have copses and it can interference in the drone detection. Here I bring some results. For the first year, one of objective was verify which sensor is best. So here we can see the sensor comparison with 30 days after planting. And it's very clear that Mica Sensial it's better to identify dead seedlings and alive seedlings. We have an accuracy with 99%. And here just with 60 days, we don't have a good accuracy because of the amount of weeds and stumps, copse, because the silvicultural process until 60 days is not so intensive then with 108, so we can have more amount of copses and weeds in the farms. In 2024, we achieved our goal to detect smaller seedlings with 15 days after planting, with a high accuracy between 94 and 97%. Here is an establishment area, and we can see very clear the difference between a reforestation area. We have cleaner soil with higher contrast, and here we have the image and the detection using AI and the drone. So in green we have the alive seedlings, red dead seedlings, and here some grass that cause false positives. Here I bring a reforestation area. You can see the difference. So this copses interference a lot in our process, but still is possible identify dead and alive seedlings with a good accuracy. In this year, we achieved our main objective to develop an application and validate this application in a real condition. So we have this image with a heat map where we can see where is the biggest amount of mortality in the plot, and help company decide if they need do the replanting in full plot or just in a part, reducing cost, reducing time. Also, we have some insights during this step, because we understand that until 15% of mortality, we can planning areas using heat maps to do the replanting. For example, we can consider just a half of this plot to do the replanting, where we have until 15% of mortality, and the other part we don't need to do the replanting. But when we have more than 18% of mortality, we need to use the full replanting in all parts of the plot. Also, with this application, we could generate this kind of map identify each dead seedling, and instead of the labor walk for all the plot, we can draw some tracks like this one and do the replanting just in the specific places where we have dead seedlings, so we can use some kind of smartwatch or a tablet or glasses, something like this kind of technology to guide the labor until the dead seedling and help the process of replanting. We did some tests with some kind of technology, and we reduced 28% time to replant and 35% walking distance. And considering the size of our areas here in Brazil, our farms is a big win for us. And just to summarize everything, we reached some technology advances with this POC. So we defined the ideal sensors and fly parameters. We could reduce the seedling age detection to 15 days after planting, very early stage to detect seedling. We achieved high detection accuracy up to 95%, develop heat maps to supporting the selective replanting, validate the methodology for large-scale use under real forestry conditions, and reduce the time and displacement, increasing the efficiency of the process of replanting. It is it for today. Thank you again for the opportunity. Here is my WhatsApp, my mail. Feel free to contact me, and we can talk a little bit more about the monitoring seedlings with drones.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Beatrice, for that interesting presentation. And lots of work that has been done, and it's good to see the progress you've made over the years to very early detections that can now be achieved. So I'd like to pose some questions to our presenters, and perhaps for now I'll start off with Darren. At a high level, in terms of nurseries, how far off are we in terms of that's at a global scale now from having full integration between all process, looking at a system that can be able to, you can see irrigation, you can see trace, you can see everything, as compared to having separate systems. So how far are we in terms of nurseries, in terms of adopting that type of a system?
Thanks, Budanya, and it's a good question. So there's a lot of existing technology out there already that is monitoring certain areas within the process of the propagation for plants. We think we'll be the first to bring in that specific substrate monitoring and grading and pH control, etc. But at the moment, they're all operating in silos. So that's where we're hoping with Grow Smarter to link all of that together into one ecosystem. And we're starting in Q1 26 this next year, and we hope to roll out the full system within the next 18 months or so. But that'll depend on where we're going and how fast we can sort of get adoption and that early buy-in on the project.
Yes, and maybe just a follow on. What do you consider as sort of mandatory things, requirements for a nursery to move to this stage? So if someone is saying, I'm considering this, what would you think are some of the basic things that a nursery should have in place?
In terms of infrastructure and equipment, Mudani?
Yes,
so I didn't
correct.
quite get the beginning of the question.
Correct. Infrastructure.
Yeah, so obviously the first key in terms of this traceability in our system would, one, obviously be a containerized nursery, where we can then track that tray. The second is that if we're going to be following this data capture from the beginning, would be with mechanical mixing of substrates. So a soil mixer in place. Manual mixing makes it a little bit more difficult and obviously far more human error involved there if we're going to be tracking from substrate to the end. And then quite key to this whole process and our traceability is going to be that RFID tag, which will be placed on each individual tray. And then the ELIPOT machinery, if we're wanting to track each individual pot or tray through, we need that ELIPOT live on the machine. But it's not to say that our ecosystem wouldn't be able to be integrated with other systems. The key for us would be starting with that ELIPOT system and then moving on thereafter. Climate control in your greenhouses or in your shade house in terms of monitoring would be important. And then moving out into the field, we'll be looking at some sort of handheld system to go with it.
Thanks for that. Then, Ali, there's a question for you from Tsepo. He says, how is the GPS device accurate in data capturing? Any limitations in processing the data and working under the tree canopy? How does the real-time GPS tracking contribute to better reporting and decision making?
Quite a bit to unpack there.
Yeah.
So the star logger comes in two different flavors: the standard accuracy and the high accuracy. The HA, I spoke about the HA quite a bit. That's centimeter level accuracy with post processing, but I didn't really go into the details about the standard one too much. It is better than your mobile phone, but it's still just consumer grade. So around about 1.2 meters to best case around about 0.8 meters under the open sky conditions. But you're right to point out the issue of tree canopy. Any GPS will degrade under GPS canopy. You take away the sky, you take away satellite view and phase lock, and you lose accuracy. It basically comes down to how dense the canopy is. If it's scattered, you will still get, fairly good signal, but if it's dense pine or something like that, it could degrade to something like 3, 4, 5 meters, maybe even worse if you have canyons and mountains and all that sort of thing. So yeah, just typical GPS accuracy issues that you get in those GPS denied areas. And the how tracking can contribute to better reporting and decision making. Well, that's a very open-ended question, but just things that come to the top of my head: just ensuring compliance, efficiency tracking, opening up avenues for precision forestry. If you know where the stems are, you have a baseline for starting automation around other processes and things like that, or remote sensing, identifying gaps for restocking, just so many. Once you've got the data, then you can do something with it.
Maybe a question from my side to you as well, Ali, is there, in the forestry environment, we're dealing with quite rugged terrain, and oftentimes we having tools that we have to put in containers and driving off our rough roads. How is the robustness of the system in terms of given that we have quite a harsh environment where sometimes there's rain and so forth?
The devices, that's another good thing to point out. The devices have been used all over the world in arid conditions in the center of Australia and in Canada. We have a lot of devices being used there. So in terms of the environment and rain and things like that, they're usually pretty fine. We don't make any large claims about water rating, but they are very well weather sealed. But in terms of the mechanical issues, they are electronics on your tools, so you sort of just need to treat your tools with a little bit more respect, and that definitely comes to the fore when you do like with spray gear. That sort of is looked after fairly well, I guess. But when you're starting to talk about spades, they get thrown around a lot. So that there is a limit to them, basically. They will get broken if you get thrown around. So you do need to treat it a little bit differently than you would otherwise if you didn't have electronics on your spade.
No, thanks for that. Bia, we've got some questions for you. Here is one from Keegan, and says, what was your flight height, and what is your seedling canopy diameter at at 15 days? And for these 3 questions, how much area are you wanting to scale to? So quite a lot, like 3 in 1. But maybe if you can just give some comments around that.
Okay. Thank you for your question. About our flight height, we flew between 30 until 50 meters to have a good resolution. About your second question, the seedling canopy diameter at 15 days, it's almost 10 centimeters. It's very small seedling. We have 4 pairs of leaves, so it's really hard to identify the seedling. And how much area are you wanting to scale? Regarding this, our partner that did the drone flights, they already did 2,000 hectares to some company, so the technology is already operational in Brazil. The detection using drone is already operational. About the technology to identify and guide the labor is not operational yet. We have some steps to become it operational.
Thank you. And then there's one here. I just want to see if there's another one. Okay, yes, there's 2 more. And here there's one that is asking about just some of the data sensors that are typically used to quantify. I know you showed some images as well to detect and quantify tree mortality. So it says, for what kind of data or sensors are typically used to detect and quantify mortality?
Okay, we use the LiDAR, MicaSense Autumn and MX, the True View, the RGB is the process that you use to identify, and we have the image processed using photogrammetry and generating orthomosaics and comparing some canopy color, texture, some gaps. We use also the spaces between seedlings to identify the gap or failures between seedlings, and the RGB sensors, but the multispectral was the best one for us to detect seedlings.
Yeah. And then a final one is this one from Zamokutle. She says, regarding your methodology, what is the significance of monitoring seedlings at 15, 30, 60, and 180 days? And how does artificial intelligence contribute to the data analysis process?
Okay, monitoring seedlings in different stages is very important for us because forest companies in Brazil needs to do the replanting after 20 days in maximum. So it's important we achieve this 15 days after planting detection, because we can have some response to the forest company if they need replanting or not. We started with 180 days to understand the process, understand if it's possible detect seedlings with LiDAR and the other sensors. And we reduced this stage to be closer than what the companies need to have as a response. So the ideal is 15 days after planting, and we achieved this stage. And about the AI contribution, the AI was the essential for the process because we train the AI to identify the dead and alive seedlings as we were analyzing in the manual way. So we compare both results with the drone, the sensors drone, and the manual qualification, and the AI learned how to identify as a human, as my interns was identifying the field.
Very interesting. Then, thank you for the responses. And then, Darren, maybe let's tackle these two for you. There's one from Sandisiwe Langman. She says, you mentioned that accurate data is needed for AI, for your AI system. How do you then ensure the accuracy and reliability of the data being put to avoid garbage in, garbage out problem?
So that's a good question, and probably one better design for our developers on the side there. But for sure, there will be safety mechanisms put in terms of managing that data, and how we control what comes in and what gets put out and put into the system. So there will be fail safes. There will be obviously options to come in and manually assess your data that will be going into the system. So if there were, for example, rubbish data coming through, that you would be able to manually assess that. But there will be some of those fail safes put in by the designers of the system for sure.
Okay, thanks, Darren. And then just the final one for you is Sipiwe Dlamini indicates that the presentation was interesting. And this is asking the use of paper pots. How is the inconsistency for moisture retention on seedlings regulated? And is there technology in place to help with regulating that?
Thanks, Sipiwe, for that good question. And it is an important one when making the shift from traditional solid plastic trays or plastic bags to the Helipot system, because there is a difference in evaporation rates of the water and a different way that you manage your irrigation and water usage. And it's not really down to one element, it's more how we look at the full system. So starting really from your substrate selection and looking at your crop and what that needs in terms of the AFP of your substrate, the water holding capacity, and the drainage, to define how much water is retained through the process. The second is your tray and cavity design. That has a really big effect because you're wanting to have that airflow around the Helipot or paper pot to get that root air pruning, but at the same time you want to manage that depending on your environment. So the tray and cavity design you choose for your pot is really important. Then the irrigation system and design, making sure obviously you have that at the right pressure, right nozzle selection, everything, but also the rule of thumb with the Helipots or paper pots is half the volume twice as often. We know we're going to get that faster dry down. So then you look at how are you going to modify and change your irrigation scheduling to make sure that you keep those wet dry cycles and don't over or under irrigate on your pots. And then there are monitoring tools out there that can be integrated, VWC probes, or the new weight-based systems that are coming out and looking at some really great results out of that, that then can be integrated into your monitoring systems and back into your data collection, so you can then learn from your environment. And then the second is, are you in a fully enclosed plastic greenhouse? Are you out just under shade netting under the wind? So there's a lot of factors that come in, and that's where this learning and data collection is so important, because each nursery has its own substrate mix, its own irrigation system, its own way of irrigating. So there isn't necessarily one set rule. We have, as I said, that rule of thumb, half the volume twice as often, but really how can we match that down to your specific location and nursery? And that's where collecting all of these data sets from all of these different variables becomes so important.
The conversation is getting very interesting because there's more and more questions coming here. But let me give you one more, then I'll go back to Bia for the final ones. So Dr. Tatenda says, for Helipot in your RFID necessary traceability setup, have you considered linking the RFID batch IDs to DNA genotype records or database to verify genetic integrity downstream for Helipot? Yeah, I think that's genetic integrity. I think there was a bit of a copying there. Yeah.
So super interesting question, and one that I think could be integrated in the future. If we're particularly looking at, say, clonal forestry or along those lines, we'll be able to link those genotypes to that specific tray when we're doing the sticking of cuttings or whatever the case may be. So I'm pretty sure if we have the API, we would be able to integrate that into our data collection and therefore into our user interface. But that would be really interesting data to track from the beginning. You know, are we looking at specific substrate types for specific clonals? That would be interesting information to track.
Thanks, Darren. Then, just back to you with two final ones. So Chiridzi Mabungu says, thank you for this initiative. In countries like South Africa, where forestry land is extremely limited and has significant forestry impact, tree survival is critical. Given that weeds were becoming an increasingly important factor after 60 days onwards, was this data manually calibrated or visually assessed to ensure accuracy?
To ensure accuracy, we calibrated based on the ground data collection. Based on the visual, we used the reference plots to validate this classification, this detection using drones. So when we compare the ground data collection with drones, we can identify, when I was identifying a live seedling or a dead seedling, I put an observation. Here is a copse in the next seedling. Here is a stump that can influence in the drone detection. So when we have the map with some false positives, as I showed in the image, the orange points, they can look for my ground collection and see what is this false positive. So it can be a copse. So we can check, double check the information and understand about the weeds or stumps, copses, and ensure the accuracy. But the first step is the visual calibration.
Thank you. And then lastly, just to close off, there's no name here, just written planning, but it says to be what is the maximum coverage area during drone flight for the greater resolutions?
Let me think, because we have different kind of sobrepositions of images to have a greater resolution. So we can think about, we covered around 30 hectares per plot. So we have the maximum coverage area. We can consider each 10 hectare per plot to have a greater resolution and having a sobreposition of images with the drone.
Thank you. Thank you so much to the presenters. And then there's just one anonymous says, congratulations. That's to us and all speakers. Great event, excellent presentations and relevant discussions. So thank you for that compliment. So just to move on and then summarize the proceedings of today. So we had a day wherein we started off the presentations, and we had a presentation by Claire where she gave an overview of the New Zealand situation. And she basically plotted a value chain in terms of what they are doing in nurseries all the way to the technologies that they are using in thinnings as well as prunings, and what they plan to actually integrate going towards the future, and the investment that is made in New Zealand. Then Temikosi also gave us an overview in terms of South African stakeholders' perspectives on digitization and opportunities that are there to explore going towards the future. There are things that are constraints, but then it also tells us there's opportunities for improved integration of digitization in silviculture operations. Dion also gave a practical approach to mulching and the complexities of practically applying mulching, but he gave it as an option in terms of how we can manage residues, but also effectively reduce fuel load. Then Stephanus Filion also indicated or gave us an overview of the mechanized planting solutions, basically the more large-scale opportunities with the forehead planter, but also the small-scale type application with an excavator-based machine, which can now do soil preparation, planting, as well as irrigation. During our second session, Darren just gave us a different view in perspective in terms of how we can manage nurseries differently, moving from just manual systems, disintegrated systems, to more integrated ones, which can also facilitate traceability through the GrowSmart technology. Harley also gave us an overview of the STA logger application and tools that can practically be used. And it was quite enjoyable to see the case studies of where this has been applied, wherein we can see that you can trace and track various activities from weeding, planting, and also be able to monitor maintenance activities. And lastly, Beatrice also gave us a very interesting journey of how drones were studied over years to now be able to detect seedlings at the early stage of 15 days, which can then facilitate the ability to do blanking or replanting in time to ensure that the required stockings can be achieved as early as possible. So I would like to take this opportunity and thank the various stakeholders that were involved with this webinar. I must say it was quite a stressful morning when the link was not working. I've never received so many emails at the same time coming through inquiring about what's happening. But I'm glad that we were able to have the webinar and the presentations. And apologies again for the delay. We had practiced and done the dry runs and everything. And unfortunately, the link was a challenge. So please accept our apologies for that. I would like to thank the Nelson Mandela University, especially our forestry department, that has been very supportive in terms of this webinar and ensuring that we can continuously facilitate discussions between industry, academia, as well as operational foresters on the ground. I think this link is quite important to ensure that we can have a mutual exchange of ideas and be able to look at what possible solutions are out there. I would also like to thank our sponsors. This is mainly Novel Equip Forestry, as well as IUFRO for their support in enabling us to have this event. I thank Prof. Lowe as well as Prof. Ladan, who were instrumental in terms of introductions and welcoming everyone, and we are thankful to them for that. Then I would like to thank the attendees for participating, registering for this event, and participating and giving contributions in terms of questions. And I'm hoping that this webinar was useful and beneficial. I would also like to thank the presenters, especially for the time in preparing for this. I know it takes time to prepare the presentations, be part of the dry runs and so forth. And thank you. Without you, this webinar would not have been possible. I want to thank Pumlani, as well as Holly and the rest of the ICT team that were quite instrumental in terms of helping us resolve the issue this morning. So thank you so much to the team for your support. Then also want to just thank the marketing team that was involved in designing the flyers and the posters. That's Michelle, Melissa, Monica, that were quite involved in helping us getting this going. So thank you to them. But also thank you to the master students that were involved. That's Junior as well as Henny and Temikosi that were involved in the coordination and the planning of this. So as we go towards the end, I just want to indicate that we will be communicating with the presenters, and where permission is given for presentations to be shared, we'll be able to share them on the Nelson Mandela website where all the other previous webinars have been uploaded. Details regarding the next webinar, next year's webinar, will be announced in due time, but as we are well accustomed to, it's around this time in October. And for those that are planning for the physical event, we are planning that a year after next, so that will be 2027, and we will communicate details regarding that as well. But lastly, if I just want to send a plea to all the attendees that if there are constructive suggestions, as well as proposals in terms of what we can do to improve going towards the future, we'll really appreciate that your input is valued. And over the years, we have taken it and incorporated it into our program and how we structure the webinar. So in final closing, I would like to say thank you to everyone for participating and for your contributions in ensuring that this webinar can be a success. And I'm hoping that you've learned something, and you can use this opportunity to connect with the presenters and get more information if the solutions that they explained or information is appealing and useful to you. Thank you so much, and I want to wish everyone a lovely day further. Bye-bye.